Hey guys, tonight we slip barefoot through the sands of time into the perfumed hush of an ancient temple long sealed to outsiders and even longer closed to truth. Moonlight coats the stones in silver and the air hums like a held breath. You're not supposed to be here. But something curiosity, maybe destiny, draws you forward. The scent of jasmine oil clings to your wrists, still warm from the ritual bath, and your footsteps whisper against worn stone. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You press one hand to the side gate where brass once gleamed and now dulls beneath centuries of secrecy. It groans open just enough for you to squeeze through, definitely not an entrance for the righteous or invited. But no alarms, no priests waiting with scrolls and judgment, just cool silence and a faint floral trace in the air like old perfume meeting desert wind. They told you this place was sealed after the last dance, that the ground itself cracked when the final performer's foot struck the floor. Superstition, probably, or stage fright made sacred. But now you're in. The sand shifts slightly underfoot. Someone walked here not long ago, or maybe it was just a jackal sniffing for figs. Either way, the scent of incense still lingers faintly, clove and vetiver. Someone's been lighting things they shouldn't. The corridor is narrow, the ceiling lower than you'd expect. You duck instinctively. Every surface feels older than memory walls, flaking with faded ochre paint symbols, sketched in looping glyphs that seem to shimmer when you blink too slowly. The kind of place where hieroglyphs might lean toward you if you speak too loudly. You don't. There's a mosaic by your foot, cracked but intricate, two dancers mid-motion, surrounded by curling vines and tiny peacocks. Their hands almost touch, as if caught in a moment before the forbidden. You wonder if this was the dance, the one that made the priests tremble and emperors rewrite doctrine. Or maybe it was just a warm-up. A whisper of fabric brushes past you, or maybe it's your imagination, because of course you're not alone, even if you can't see anyone. Temples rarely host solitude. If you ask any archaeologist, they'll tell you sacred places remember better than stone libraries. Your fingers trail along a carved pillar. It depicts a figure, mid-spin limbs, long and impossible, like the laws of motion were bent just to fit her posture. Her eyes are painted wide pupils, deep as well water. A dancer, yes, and probably not the tame kind they let perform during morning offerings. This was a night dancer, the kind whispered about in taverns and temple kitchens, the kind who made statues sweat. You pause under an archway where the air is colder, denser. Something brushes your toes a petal. No, just a scrap of your robe. You really should have gone with the shorter hem. Maybe forbidden dances don't allow tripping hazards. A soft crunch beneath your foot. You glance down. Sand and petals, real ones, dried and brittle but unmistakably lotus. This trail isn't old. Someone prepared it for you. The next hallway opens into a small chamber, domed and dim. Lanterns flicker low, their wicks struggling, and statues line the walls. 12 of them, maybe 13, hard to say, where one shadow ends and another begins. Each face is different. Some serene, some cruel, some with expressions too subtle for translation. All watching, none blinking. Your breath hitches just a little. You try not to look directly at their eyes. It's like trying not to think about penguins when someone says don't think about penguins. Too late. You're wondering if one just moved. The central floor bears a circular groove, faint but deliberate. This was a place for spinning, the kind of movement that would hypnotize a crowd or a deity, the kind of movement that once required silence fasting and an audience of stars. There's a pair of anklets on a low pedestal, delicate, bronze, still faintly echoing with movement even though no one's touched them in centuries. You pick one up. It's warm, not metaphorically, actually warm, and that's when you realize someone has danced here recently, maybe just last night, maybe you're not the only one drawn back by something that refuses to be forgotten. A breath catches in your throat as something shifts, a door, a draft, a thought. You're suddenly aware of your heartbeat, of the way your breath sounds, too loud, too modern in a place like this. Still you move forward, not bravely, just curiously, the same way you read old journal entries you swore you wouldn't. The temple swallows the sound of your steps, offering no opinion, no judgment. But the jasmine in the air grows stronger. Whoever was here before you didn't just leave behind a ritual, they left an invitation. And whether you meant to or not, you've accepted. You step forward slowly, carefully, as the lantern light wavers, stretching long shadows across the worn stone floor. The room opens wider than expected, shaped like an eye turned toward the heavens. The center is slightly raised, a platform of pale stone that must have once gleamed when polished, though now it's dulled by time and dust and secrets. The statues encircling you don't move. Of course they don't. That would be absurd. But they feel different now, not just watchers, witnesses. Each one carved in a different stance. One kneels in grief, another leans forward with joy. A third stands tall with a raised hand forever, in the act of offering or stopping a gesture. None of them match each other. You wonder if they were modeled after dancers who once performed here, or deities who demanded to be entertained. Some scholars argue these weren't gods at all, but personifications of emotions, the original pantheon of movement, joy, grief, temptation, resistance. They say each had their own assigned motion in the dance, a tilt of the head for defiance, a roll of the shoulder for longing. Others claim they were merely ancestors elevated by memory or marketing. You can never really rule out ancient PR. You walk slowly along the circle, keeping your eyes on their stone faces. The lanterns sputter occasionally, not in protest, but as if adjusting, trying to keep up with your pace. One statue catches your eye. It's carved from a different stone, slightly greenish like serpentine. This figure has her hands raised to her face, palms inward, as if whispering a secret to herself. Or maybe shielding herself from something she never wanted to see again. You find yourself mirroring her without realizing. It just feels right. From the corner of the chamber, there's a sound, a flick of fabric, or maybe just wind, sneaking in through a cracked window no one remembers building. A doorway lies ahead, narrow with a silk curtain instead of a door. The fabric is old but intact, patterned with tiny lotus flowers and stitched in thread, so fine it almost disappears. You push it aside gently, like peeling back a memory. Inside, the air is thicker, warmer, sweetened with something like honey and wood smoke. A small oil lamp flickers in the corner next to a low bench cushioned in embroidered fabric. And on that bench sits her. She doesn't speak when you enter, just lifts her head slightly. Her face is partially veiled, not out of modesty, you sense, but as a formality, like the way some people wear sunglasses indoors to hide how much they're judging you. Her age is hard to place. 50, 70, 100, and spiritually hydrated. Her spine is straight as a spear, and her hands rest like folded wings in her lap. When she nods, it feels like a whole ritual's begun. She gestures to the floor. You sit without a word. She watches you for a long moment. Then she leans forward, lifts her finger, and traces a line in the dust between you. A spiral, clockwise, inward. You blink. That's it. That's the lesson. Then she moves. Just one arm wrist, rolling like water, poured from a jar, fingers unfurling slowly like petals opening to sunlight. Her elbow lifts, shoulder turns, neck angles slightly. You don't need a lecture. You understand. She's showing you the first movement, the first phrase of a dance language no one has spoken in centuries. The forbidden dance wasn't outlawed for being violent or vulgar. It was banned because it worked, or so the legends claim. You mimic her movement, not perfectly, but with care. Your arm feels heavy, maybe from nerves, or maybe because the motion carries more weight than it appears. She nods once. That's either approval or encouragement, or both. And then she repeats it slightly faster. Adds another gesture, a sweeping motion of the hand across the brow, then a slow pull inward at the heart. You follow again. It becomes a conversation without words, the kind where meaning flows through muscle memory rather than vowels. You wonder how many others she's taught. If you're the only one this century, or the only one this month? You hope there aren't auditions. Your resume is thin. As the movements continue, a rhythm begins to pulse under your skin. There's no music. Just the sound of your breath and the hush of your clothes brushing the stone. But the rhythm is real. You can feel it in your wrists, your ankles, the base of your spine. She finally speaks. One word, a name, not yours. A dancer's name, long buried. You recognize it from one of the scrolls, the one tucked behind a chipped relief in the garden wall. The woman who danced during an eclipse and supposedly made the moon linger too long. The priests said it was a coincidence. Farmers said their crops thanked her. You repeat the name softly. The old woman nods. Historians still argue whether this dance was religious or political, whether it was meant to summon gods or challenge kings. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe it was just someone finally deciding they didn't want to kneel anymore and figured moving beautifully was a good alternative. Your teacher leans back, resting again. She raises her hand and flicks her fingers once dismissively. You think that means the lesson's over. As you rise, your foot brushes the edge of the spiral she drew earlier. You didn't notice before, but the shape is mirrored in the grooves of the chamber's ceiling. As above, so below. You're inside a symbol, a very dusty, sacred symbol that now has a bit of your footprint on it. Oops. You bow slightly, not because you're sure it's expected, but because it feels respectful. She doesn't return it. Instead, she points toward a small alcove draped in pale fabric. A robe hangs there, deep crimson lined with gold thread, clearly ceremonial. It's beautiful and also terrifying, because you get the distinct feeling it's not for display. It's for you. You stare at the crimson robe hanging in the alcove. It doesn't shimmer like new silk, but it absorbs light instead, like it's been watching the centuries pass through a crack in the wall and has absolutely no intention of forgetting any of it. It's heavier than it looks too. When you reach for it, the fabric drapes over your fingers like memory. The gold thread catches against your skin, not enough to hurt, just enough to remind you this wasn't stitched for comfort. This was meant for ceremony, for control, for transformation. A costume that isn't pretending. You pull it on slowly, awkwardly at first. There are no zippers, no buttons, just ties and layers, everything requiring a logic you don't yet understand. But your hands seem to find the way. Your reflection in the polished brass plate on the wall startles you. You look less like yourself and more like someone halfway remembered in a story your grandmother never quite finished telling. From behind you hear the scrape of cloth over stone. You turn, but your teacher is gone, not vanished, just not there anymore. The bench is empty, the lamp still flickering. You didn't hear her leave, of course you didn't. The robe clings at the shoulders, hangs heavy at the hem. It sways when you breathe. You walk to the center of the larger chamber, again drawn by something other than curiosity now. More like gravity. Like this is where the robe belongs and you're just following the stitching. The lanterns still flicker on the statues. They seem brighter now, casting longer shadows, warming the cold eyes of stone. One of the statues now seems to tilt its head ever so slightly as if considering you. You're sure it didn't look like that before. You step into the center of the dance floor. It isn't marked with paint or tile, just slightly smoother than the rest of the stone. Worn down by footsteps, by turns, by years of bodies spiraling through incense and invocation. You breathe in, deeply. The air tastes of something ancient, salt maybe, or ashes, and something floral again. That jasmine never really leaves, does it? You wonder if the original dancers used it too, or if it just soaks into the walls over time. Aromatic ghosting. You take the first step, the one she showed you, the simple wrist roll. Your fingers extend like vines reaching toward morning light. Your arm curves, your weight shifts. Then the next move, the sweep across the brow, the pull to the chest. It comes more easily this time. Like your joints, remember, like your bones studied while you slept, you start to improvise. A little. Not recklessly, just tiny adjustments. A slower turn, a deeper breath between gestures. The robe responds like a living thing, swaying with you, nudging you when you falter. And there's a sound, not quite music, not quite silence either. Something in between, like the sound of wind brushing strings, a half-remembered lullaby played on a reed flute in another room. You turn toward it instinctively, but there's nothing there. Yet. You move again. Another phrase. Arms above your head, a tilt of the hip. Your foot skims the edge of the spiral again, and something shifts. The lanterns flicker in rhythm this time. A beat? Or maybe just coincidence? Or maybe you're becoming your own drum. There's a story the scrolls never quite agree on. That the dance was once used to crown a new high priestess, not through inheritance, but by motion. That whoever moved with the truest rhythm would be chosen by the gods. One scroll says the gods would speak through a burst of flame. Another says it was just an unnaturally well-timed dove. Historians still argue whether either version was real or if it was just the temple's way of picking the best dancer for PR. You pause, panting slightly. Not from exertion, but from the way your breath now sounds like it's echoing off something alive. The room feels more awake. Like each movement tugged another eyelid open. Somewhere high above, something shifts stone, or ceiling, or sky. Or none of the above. A gust of air moves through the space. Not warm, not cold, just aware. You walk to the edge of the circle, where a low niche holds something small and wrapped in silk. You pull the fabric back carefully, revealing a narrow object, an ankle bracelet, or maybe a bell. It's shaped like a crescent, with small holes where chimes used to hang. You lift it. It doesn't jingle, it sighs. There's an inscription along the metal. Faded and partially eroded to dance is to disappear correctly. You blink. What does that even mean? Disappear incorrectly, fall off the stage and into politics. Still, you understand it somehow. The best dances are the ones where you vanish a little, where your body becomes the story instead of the storyteller. You tie the anklet on. It doesn't make a sound, but you feel it vibrate with each step. It's as if the bell is remembering its job, quietly warming up for something big, or someone big. When you glance up again, the statues look the same. Sort of. But you're starting to feel like you know them now. That green one, definitely the one who gets too into interpretive dance at weddings. The tall one with arms outstretched, drama queen, probably wept during thunderstorms. You exhale and step back into the circle. One more time, just to see what happens. This time, your movements flow. There's no thinking, just doing. Your limbs follow a choreography that seems written not in music, but in instinct. And then mid-spin you stop. Not because you meant to, but because the air shifted again. There's someone watching, not a statue, not a ghost. Someone breathing, close. You don't turn immediately. You hold the stillness the way a dancer holds the final pose, one breath longer than comfort allows. Whoever is watching wants a reaction. Instead, you let your fingers fall in a soft arc by your sides, like a curtain closing gently after a performance no one applauded. The silence is taut now, not the peaceful hush of a sacred place, but the electric pause before thunder. And then a step, barefoot like yours. Soft, deliberate, one, then another. You turn your head slowly. There in the corner of the chamber, just past the curtain you passed through earlier, stands a figure, slim-robed face in shadow. They say nothing, make no gesture. But their presence is undeniable, like a candle you forgot to extinguish, still burning somewhere behind a door. You take a step toward them. They don't move, not toward you, not away, just watching, waiting. The lantern flames flicker once, and in that brief moment of shifting light you see their eyes, not glowing or otherworldly, just deeply, unsettlingly human, curious, alert, maybe afraid. You speak the only word that makes sense why they don't answer. You blink and they're gone, no footfall, no swish of fabric, just gone, like a stagehand exiting behind the scenery. You walk to the spot they stood and find nothing, no trace of presence, no scent, no breath caught in the air. Only a thin line of disturbed dust. A path leading toward the hall of murals. You follow. The corridor curves like a question mark, its walls lined with paintings, too faded to impress, but too intact to ignore. Some show gods reclining, others show battles, processions, animals. But the ones that stop you are the dancers. They're painted mid-motion, spinning, bowing, leaping. Their robes ripple with implied movement, even though the paint has cracked and flaked over time. You recognize the posture from your lessened shoulders, back, left hand curved at the ribs, right palm skyward, a signal, a calling. One mural shows something unusual, a circle of dancers, 6 in total. All women, but with one detail different on each. One wears golden anklets, another a phoenix tattoo on her shoulder. The third has hair braided with bone charms. The fourth, you freeze. She wears a robe, like yours, crimson with gold. Her face is turned away, but her stance is unmistakable. It's your pose. The one you found accidentally, arms raised, spine arched like a bow. The fifth dancer holds a mask in her hand. The sixth one has no face at all, just a blank pale oval, maybe unfinished or erased. You lean closer. Something about the mural's texture shifts, like it's been touched recently, cleaned, maintained. Someone still comes here, and at the bottom corner, barely visible unless the light hits just right, are glyphs. You don't recognize all of them, but one repeats, forbidden. You trace it with your fingertip and feel warmth radiating from the wall. Again, not metaphorical, actual warmth, like the stone remembers being touched. There's an alcove nearby, smaller than the last. Inside, a set of ceremonial slippers rests on a cushion, dustless, well kept, definitely not left here centuries ago. They're embroidered with the pattern of spirals and vines, the same pattern you saw etched into the dance platform. You pick one up, light as a whisper. You half expect it to hum in your hand. There's a fringe belief among certain fringe historians that garments used in ritual retain energy resonance from repeated spiritual movement. It's considered pseudoscience, of course, but you're holding a slipper that feels like it's about to exhale. You place it back carefully and return to the corridor, continuing toward a tall archway ahead. Above it, another mural shows a dancer surrounded by flames, not consumed, more like crowned by them. A halo of fire. Most interpretations say it's symbolic. Others insist it was literal, that certain dances were performed near open flame as a test of courage or as a punishment. Historians still argue whether those dancers were burned as sacrifices or simply caught in the glow of ceremonial firebowls. Or maybe the story got confused in translation. Fire tends to rewrite stories quickly. Beyond the archway is a space unlike any other you've entered. It's circular with tiers descending inward like a sunken stage or a ritual amphitheater. The walls are covered in reflective tiles, many broken, some intact, all angled, just enough to catch light from a central skylight above. Moonlight pours in. You step down one level at a time. With each descent, your ears fill with that not music again, the soft fluttering of a tune that doesn't exist, a rhythm that doesn't need a drum. You feel your heartbeat sinking to it without effort. At the bottom, a single mat. Woven reeds, simpler than everything else in this place. You sit. A scroll lies nearby, partially unrolled. You hesitate because reading scrolls in ancient temples is how curses start in bad horror films, but curiosity wins. Always does. The scroll is in old script, translated clumsily in spots. One phrase repeats often. To move in defiance is to pray without kneeling. You trace it. That same warm stone again. Suddenly you hear it. Real footsteps approaching, slow even, measured. You stand robe whispering around your legs. A figure enters the chamber, not the one from before. This one is cloaked, taller, posture different. You can't see their face, but they begin to move. Not toward you, with you, a step, a roll of the arm. The same sequence the elder showed you. You move too. And in that moment the dance isn't forbidden, it's happening. Your bare feet shift lightly over the worn stone robe, swaying with each breath as the other figure mirrors you. You don't speak. There's no need. This isn't conversation, it's call and response in muscle and breath, in rhythm and release. The figure's movements are fluid, assured. They've done this before. Maybe recently, maybe always. Their face remains in shadow, but their presence is undeniable, like a dream you half remember after waking and aren't sure whether to miss or fear. You step closer, not to close the distance, but to match their timing more precisely. A slow arm arc, a hip turn, the grounding of your heel against the sacred floor, and then it clicks. This is a partner dance. Of course it is. The murals never show a single dancer. They always appear in pairs or groups, braided poses, mirrored lines, synchronized spirals. You wonder how you missed it before, or maybe you didn't. Maybe you were waiting for your other half. The movements shift more intricate now. A twist of the torso, a sudden drop to one knee, arms framing the body in a fleeting symbol. You mimic as best you can, feeling the robe tug gently with gravity sweat starting to bead under your collarbone. Not from heat, there's still no heat here. Just from concentration, from care. The rhythm intensifies, still no drums, no flutes, no lyres. And yet your pulse is carried forward as if by some invisible score. You feel the soundless tempo vibrate through the soles of your feet. The figure suddenly spins robes, swirling in a way that reminds you of a bird in descent, and then they land with one foot forward and you realize they're waiting for your response. This part's new, improvised, a challenge or an offering. You step forward, lifting one hand in a diagonal sweep, crossing your chest, and turning away as your foot drags in a slow crescent, a heartbeat of stillness. Then you face them again. The figure nods once, just enough to register as agreement, or maybe something older than approval, recognition. Around you, the chamber seems to tighten and expand at the same time. Your awareness narrows to this moment and somehow also stretches to centuries beyond it. You can feel the breath of dancers who came before you, their joy, their fear, their rebellion. You recall one of the scrolls written by a novice priest who had secretly attended one of the last forbidden dances hidden behind the curtain of a wine cart. He wrote, "They did not move like worshippers. They moved like winds that had finally escaped the bottle." Historians still argue whether this account was real or apocryphal. Some say the scroll was a forgery created to discredit the temple. Others say the phrasing is too poetic to be fake. You kind of hope it was true. Anyone who hides in a wine cart deserves to witness something profound. Your partner shifts again. A sudden burst of motion, one hand extended as if offering something invisible, the other behind their back. You echo it. Then they raise both arms, palms up, and the chamber seems to brighten. No torches have changed, no skylight shift, but the light feels thicker. As if the room is more present now, your movements become sharper. The robe whirls around your knees. You lower yourself into a wide stance, arms sweeping low like wings grazing water. Then something strange happens. The air starts to smell like saffron. You freeze, not out of fear, but confusion. That's impossible. The temple stores were emptied long ago. Saffron was used in sacred anointing and in rare rituals to summon fertility, or more controversially, as part of ancient, intoxicating incense banned by later reforms. One theory even suggests that inhaling burning saffron during sacred dance would induce euphoric visions believed to be communion with gods. Another theory: it was just extremely expensive and made people feel fancier than they were. But this scent, warm, earthy, golden, hugs the air now. You glance at the floor. And it's not just your imagination. Tiny thread-like strands are scattered near your partner's feet. You step closer. Saffron, real, fresh. You want to say something clever like, "So you bought snacks, but it would ruin everything." Instead, you bow, not low, just enough to acknowledge the weirdness, the magic, the logistics. Your partner lifts their hand slowly, palm open, toward you. You hesitate. Is this part of the dance or something older? Something deeper? You mirror the motion, placing your palm against theirs. Skin to skin, warm, real, solid. And in that instant, everything stops, not freezes, just stills. The tiles stop flickering. The soundless music evaporates. Your breath leaves your body in a single sigh, and for a split second you forget where you are. Then the figure steps back. The connection breaks. They bow deeper this time, formal, and turn. You call out without speaking. Your posture asks the question, "Who are you?" They pause in the archway and slowly remove their hood. You recognize the face immediately because it's yours, not a mirror, not magic, an echo, a memory, an ancestor, or maybe a future. Your own eyes look back at you. Older maybe, or wiser, or simply ready. Then they vanish into the corridor's shadows, robes trailing behind like a story you haven't earned yet. You're left alone again. But this time you don't feel alone. The chamber breathes with you, and somewhere above the moon shifts slightly closer somehow. You stand still in the chamber, the silence pressing softly at your shoulders. Your own face, older, impossibly real, lingers behind your eyelids. You blink once, twice, as if clearing sand from your vision. The figure is gone. But the shape of the dance remains, as if the room itself now moves in slow circles around you. You look down. The saffron strands are still there. Real. Tangible. You kneel beside them, fingers grazing the floor, expecting them to vanish or crumble or maybe laugh at you, because that would be fitting. But they remain. Fragrant, golden, like threads spun by memory and ritual. As you rise, your eyes land once again on the tiled walls. Only now you notice something different. One of the mirror panels has shifted just a hair, just enough to reflect a sliver of the opposite wall that wasn't visible before. There it is, a painting you hadn't seen. A mural so faint it's almost erased. But the image is unmistakable, another dancer. Alone this time, no partner, arms lifted in defiance or surrender, or maybe both. Behind her, 12 figures seated in a semicircle, watching, judging, or enthralled. Each of the 12 wears a headdress shaped like a lotus in a different stage of bloom. The priesthood, clearly, though their expressions are strangely ambiguous. Some look sorrowful, some awestruck. One even seems to be smiling slightly, maybe at the dancer, maybe at themselves. But the dancer is aflame, not literally, not quite. But the paint around her flares outward in spirals of red, orange, and gold. Like the artist didn't know how else to show what she became. A figure in transcendence. You stare at her a long time. They never name the dancer who caused the ban, the one whose performance shifted temple policy and set fire to a century of choreographed reverence. Some say it was a political move, that the dance became a symbol of rebellion and banning it was an act of control. Others say the dancer was possessed by a god, by madness, by grief, that she danced herself into divine territory and didn't come back down. Historians still argue whether the event ever truly happened or was retroactively invented to explain a sudden temple reform. But the murals say what the scrolls won't. She danced, and after that everything changed. You take a breath. Your hand rises, mimicking the gesture in the painting, not in performance, in recognition. You're not her, but you understand her. And then, as if nudged by that very understanding, the wall to your right exhales. Yes, exhales. A soft breath of air seeps from the cracks between two panels, and with a barely audible sigh, the seams widen. Not much, just enough for you to slip through, which of course you do, because you're not curious anymore. You're called. The space beyond is narrow, low. You duck instinctively. Cobwebs brush your cheeks soft as moth wings. The floor slopes downward slightly. Dampness clings to the walls here, cool with the smell of ancient paper and undisturbed thoughts. And then you find it. A chamber no larger than a monk's cell, lined with clay walls still bearing the fingerprints of whoever built them. In the center sits a low table. And on that table, parchments, dozens, maybe more, bound in string, some wrapped in faded silk, others stacked like unfinished ideas. You reach for one, carefully, half expecting it to crumble, but it holds. You unroll it slowly. It's a diagram, a dancer's pose. Limbs extended, one foot pointed backward, one hand held above the head, like a cup catching rain. Arrows and lines indicate motion, swirls, arcs, counterbalances. It's not a drawing, it's notation, like sheet music for bodies. You blink down at it, all rising like incense. This is the lost language, the original choreography of the forbidden dance, recorded not in words but in gesture, each scroll a page in a physical scripture. Another scroll catches your eye, this one bound in violet ribbon. You undo it gently, reverently. Inside, the text is faded but still legible. To dance is to translate memory into motion. To misstep is to forget. To repeat is to remember. There's a diagram below that, the move you just performed, the sequence you did with the figure yourself in the chamber. But this scroll is older than you, much older. And suddenly something becomes clear. You weren't copying the dance, you were remembering it. You weren't being taught, you were being restored. You return the scroll to the table, your hand trembling slightly, not from fear, from reverence. And then near the back wall, something else, a small altar. Not like the grand ones outside, decked with gold and carvings. This one is humble, just a flat stone with a shallow bowl. Inside it, dried flowers, crumbled herbs, and a single delicate object, a mask, smooth, porcelain-like, white, featureless. You lift it, it's incredibly light. And on the inside, painted in careful hand, is a phrase in the old dialect. When worn, speak only in motion. You smile despite yourself. Of course, a silent language, a story told with limbs and breath. You lower the mask, hold it gently to your face, and for a moment the world is still. Your thoughts go quiet. Your shoulders ease. You are not you anymore. You are the role, the dancer, the echo, the flame. You set the mask back down with care, though it lingers in your palms like a farewell handshake. As you exit the chamber, the narrow hallway feels wider somehow, the air warmer. The mural of the dancer is waiting for you unchanged, but now she looks less like a painting and more like a mirror. You step back into the central chamber, breath steady now, the echo of parchment diagrams still flickering behind your eyes. The robe you wear rustles faintly as you move, as if remembering the steps before your mind can catch up. And it's then, only then, that you begin to hear it again. Music, not loud, not even clear, but real. A subtle, pulsing rhythm, not made by instruments, but by motion itself. A suggestion of sound, your own heartbeat straining to become melody. The kind of music dancers say they feel in their bones, long after the last drumbeat fades. You follow it, letting your body lead. No audience, no teacher, just stone walls and watching gods and the sensation that every footstep is part of something rehearsed before you were born. You turn left at the fork in the corridor and find yourself in a space you don't remember seeing before. The walls here are painted top to bottom in layered murals like the temple ran out of space, but not stories. The topmost mural shows a dancer at twilight framed by rising smoke. Her hands glow with gold paint cracked from age but still luminous. Beneath it, a second dancer mid-leap face half covered by a mask shaped like a crescent moon. The third mural is mostly worn away. You can just make out a pair of feet ankle bells still faintly ringing in the mind.
And suddenly, without warning, you're weeping. Not from sadness, not even from beauty, but from recognition, like something inside you has been trying to cry for centuries, and you've only now given it permission. You breathe in sharply. The air smells of lotus and dust, sacred decay, and something underneath, something musical. You close your eyes and begin to move. A step, a turn, a lift of the arm elbow bent, just so, fingers curling like ivy. You're not performing, you're remembering again. The difference is subtle but sacred, and then something odd happens. The floor beneath your right foot vibrates, gently, just once. Enough to make you pause. You step back, then forward again. There it is, a pulse like a breath escaping beneath the stone. You crouch, press your palm to the floor. The vibration is rhythmic, steady, like a heartbeat, like a drum hiding under the temple's skin. And when you pull your hand away, your fingers are dusted with fine gold powder. Okay?
That's not normal. You look around. No hidden door, no mechanism, just stone. Silent too old to be playing tricks. But the golden dust glows faintly. Your hand still tingles. You sit back, cross-legged, and listen. Not just with ears, with skin, with presence. You think about the ancient stories, the ones where dancers summoned storms, softened war-hardened kings, or turned hearts to honey with one bow of the spine. Most were dismissed as myth, of course, but one account, the one no one agrees on, tells of a temple that breathed in time with a dancer that responded, that answered. Historians still argue whether it referred to this place or another, lost to sandstorms and storytelling. Some say the tale was metaphorical, a poetic way to describe harmony between art and place. Others claim seismic evidence suggests some temples had chambers built to resonate like instruments. Sacred acoustics. You don't need the science. You have your hand on the floor and the stone is humming a lullaby you've never heard, but somehow know the words to. You rise again. The robe moves like it's guiding you, like it knows the rhythm better than you do. This time you spin. One slow, complete turn, arms wide. The motion stirs the air around you. Dust rises in lazy spirals. The vibration grows stronger, not louder, just more present. Another step, another gesture, and now the faint outline of a door appears in the far wall. No sound, no dramatic creak, just the quiet certainty of stone remembering it once opened. You approach it. There's no handle, no lock, just a narrow, vertical crack filled with darkness. You press your fingers to it. The robe tightens around your waist, not uncomfortably, more like a seatbelt. You laugh softly. That's one way to cue suspense. The door doesn't open, but you're not disappointed. It doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like invitation with conditions. And maybe the condition is this dance for it. So you do. One more step. A new phrase. Improvised, but rooted in memory. A lift of the leg, a twist of the wrist. You pause, wait, balanced perfectly between breath and gravity. And the crack in the door glows, a thin golden line. You step back, the glow fades, you step forward, it returns. Okay then, you continue. Each movement becomes a line of code, an ancient password in motion. You circle, pivot, lower, rise, and with every move the door responds. It pulses with each phrase. You half expect it to speak. Finally, as your hand lifts overhead in a final arc, the door exhales open. Just a whisper, just enough, and you walk through. No fireworks, no gods descending, just a cool breath of air that smells like forgotten paper and warm skin. Inside is a chamber, darker than the others, simpler. A low altar stands in the center, surrounded by cushions, and in the middle, a small round stone bowl filled with water.
You kneel before it. Lean closer. Your reflection ripples, not just from movement. The surface shivers, and then another face appears. Not yours, not your dance partner, someone else. Eyes lined with coal, lips parted slightly in concentration, and those hands. You know those hands, you've seen them in murals, on statues, in scroll diagrams. You whisper her name aloud, the name that was almost erased. And the reflection smiles, the reflection in the bowl smiles not cruelly, not kindly, but knowingly. As if she's been waiting for you to catch up. As if the water itself remembers every dancer who ever leaned over its surface and whispered, "Am I ready?" Her eyes are dark and wide, not frightened, but full of history, of risk, of movement that once defied silence and got written out for it. You blink, and her reflection wavers slightly but doesn't vanish. She's not a ghost. Ghosts don't smile like that.
Ghosts don't lean toward you like they're about to share gossip they've held on to for a few centuries too long. You don't speak. You just breathe, and your reflection, her reflection, breathes with you. Then, from the shadows behind you, the faintest shuffle. Not footsteps, not even fabric, just movement. A presence slipping around the corner like a whisper curling under a door. You turn slowly, and there, half swallowed by the dark, stands a figure. Not the teacher, not the other you, someone new. They hold a scroll in one hand and a shallow bowl in the other. No expression, no voice. But they offer both items with steady, expectant arms. You stand, take the bowl first. It's lighter than it looks, carved from pale stone, its rim etched with delicate spirals that echo the ones on your robe. You recognize one of the glyphs immediately. Motion remembers. A phrase you've now felt in your own bones. The scroll is tied with faded green cord. You undo it gently, half expecting another dance diagram. It isn't. It's a letter. The handwriting is small, looping, intimate, not for ceremony, for confession. To the one who finds this, I was the last to dance in the light of open fire. I was not chosen. I was not permitted. I danced anyway. You inhale slowly. She's writing to you, to anyone brave or foolish enough to follow the movements she left behind. They told me my hips defied the gods. They told me I had no right to step where others bowed. So I did not step. I spun. There's a smudge in the ink, a fingerprint maybe, or a tear, possibly both. I buried this scroll before the tribunal could burn it. I don't know if anyone else survived the cleansing. But if you've found this, it means the temple still breathes. And perhaps it dreams of motion again. You close the scroll gently and set it beside the water bowl. The figure who handed them to you gives a slight nod, then fades back into the corridor.
Again, no footsteps, just vanishing. At this point, it's honestly a little rude. You return your gaze to the water. The reflection is still there, but now it moves, slowly. Her hand rises, not as a wave, as a signal, a gesture you've seen only once before in that mural of the 6 dancers, where one stood alone surrounded by shadowed priests. The same movement, the same silent defiance. You raise your hand to mirror her, and the water stills. In that perfect pause, you realize you're no longer hearing the music, because you are it. Your breath, your heartbeat, your foot pressed against ancient stone. It was never about background instruments, it was always about you. You take one step back from the bowl. And as you do, your robe brushes against a stand behind you that you hadn't noticed before. On it, a new item. A pair of arm cuffs. Silver etched with spirals and flames, polished to a dull gleam. You reach for one, and it's warm. Again.
That unnerving, possibly magic warmth of objects too old to remember their own origin stories, but too sacred to forget yours. As you fasten the cuffs around your forearms, the fabric of your robe responds subtle but real, as if it recognizes the cuffs, maybe even missed them. Like reuniting with a pair of earrings you swore you didn't need, and suddenly your whole outfit makes sense again. You rise, not as a supplicant, not even as a student, as a vessel, for motion, for memory, for whatever story the temple decided to keep locked in its bones until someone you remembered how to move like it once mattered. And then you hear it, not music, applause, but only once, one single solemn clap. From somewhere deeper in the temple, you freeze, not in fear, in reverence. Because that was not metaphorical, that was sound. You wait, silence, but not emptiness, the kind of silence that follows meaning. You exit the chamber slowly every step, a continuation of the gestures you've just recalled. Not walking, gliding. The cuffs shift gently with your motion, and the robe drapes like it's wrapped in wind. Back in the mural corridor, you pause. Something's changed. The third mural, the one you thought was mostly erased, has returned. Not completely, but now you can see more than just the feet. A hip, an elbow, a crown of braids. Someone has begun restoring her. Someone wants her seen again. You look closer and notice faint new strokes, fresher paint, less cracked. Whoever's doing it, they're using you, your movements, your poses. You're not just dancing in the temple, you're being recorded by it. You glance upward, one of the old statues near the ceiling, a dancer figure with arms outstretched, now wears the same cuffs you do. When did that happen? You smile. You don't need the answer. You're becoming part of the story. You retrace your steps through the mural corridor, half dancing, now half walking, because it's hard to do one without the other anymore. The temple doesn't echo so much as respond, like an attentive partner who's learned your rhythms, waiting for your next move. And the scent in the air shifts again. The jasmine fades. Something richer takes its place. Rose. Not synthetic. Not floral shop rose. Real rose. Pressed oil and aged parchment rose. The kind that clings to scrolls hidden too long in clay jars, waiting for someone foolish or fated enough to read them. It leads you to a door tucked behind a tapestry of faded silk. You gently push the cloth aside, and behind it there's a narrow staircase. Worn stone spiraling downward, lit by small clay lamps that burn low but never seem to go out. You descend carefully, hand trailing along the wall, fingertips grazing each groove worn into the stone. Every 5th step or so there's a small petal, dry and pale pink, crushed flat against the stair. You follow them without question. Why question roses in a place this old? Honestly, they're the most normal thing you've encountered so far. At the bottom of the stairs is a small chamber, and inside it smells like secrets that were never quite ashamed of themselves. There are scrolls everywhere, neatly arranged on wide stone shelves wrapped in red silk and tied with twine. A low writing desk sits in the middle, surrounded by cushions sunken with age, and behind the desk is a niche in the wall. You step closer. In the niche is a sealed jar, terracotta, hand-painted rim, lipped in gold leaf, so faded it looks like dried honey. There's a wax seal, and impressed in the wax is the spiral. You know that spiral, the one drawn by your teacher in dust, the one etched into the cuffs. You unseal it slowly, respectfully. No ancient curses release, no dramatic wind, just perfume. The strongest rose scent yet, earthy, oily, slightly metallic. It's not just perfume, it's memory bottled. Inside the jar, rolled scrolls stand upright like sleeping swans. You pull one gently. The ribbon around it is tied in a familiar knot. Your knot, the one you use for your hair. You definitely didn't tie this, and yet it was waiting for you. You unfold the scroll. It's not instructions, not choreography. It's a letter again. But this one starts differently. To the dancer who would not wait for permission, you smile. You already like her. I wrote this while hiding beneath the offering table, the only place they never swept. I watched from the shadows as they erased our names from the temple registry one by one, as if removing ink could undo motion. I waited until the last of the scribes nodded off before slipping out again and dancing the steps backwards so the gods wouldn't see me, only feel me. You read slower now. It's not a performance. It's communion. They never knew I was pregnant. That my daughter would carry the rhythm in her bones, that it would echo through the line until one day someone like you would hear it again without being told. Maybe blood remembers better than books. You stop, inhale, rose and dust and salt and something else truth. She finishes her letter with one final line. If you found this, you've already danced what they feared. You are now part of the record they tried to bury. Your fingers tremble slightly as you roll the scroll and return it to the jar, not out of fear, out of acknowledgement. You look around. Every scroll on these shelves, they're not history, they're resistance. Stories that never got told aloud because telling them was dangerous, so instead they perfumed the paper, hid them in softness, smuggled them in beauty. You take one more and carefully tuck it into your robe. You don't need them all. Just one voice is enough to carry the dance forward. As you stand, something falls lightly from your sleeve, a pressed petal from higher up the stairs. It drifts, floats, lands on the dusty floor beside the scroll jar. The scent of rose sharpens, then fades. You look once more around the room, then head back up the steps, slower this time as though each footfall should be placed like a syllable in a spell. Back through the silk curtain, back into the temple proper. But now, something has shifted. A doorway ahead is open. It wasn't before. And inside, the scent changes again. Charcoal, ink, and cedarwood. This is the scriptorium, the temple's secret heart. You step in and the walls are lined with painted panels, dozens of faces each labeled with a name and a glyph. You recognize none of them at first. Then one, faint, nearly erased, but there. Your teacher, a younger version of her anyway, no veil, smiling. The inscription below her name simply reads, "The one who moved without music." You grin. Below her panel, an open space, blank, fresh wood, as if waiting, no pressure. You turn to leave, but not before pressing your hand gently to the wall beside her name. It's cool. Still. But you swear only for a moment you feel a heartbeat beneath the paint. The heartbeat beneath the paint fades as quickly as it came, like a breath held too long and then exhaled into silence. You lower your hand slowly, gaze lingering on the space beneath your teacher's image. That blank panel stares back at you, not in demand, but in invitation. No chisel, no paintbrush nearby, just a question hanging in the wood grain. Will you stay long enough to be remembered? You step away before you answer. The scriptorium door swings shut behind you without a sound. Outside, the corridor is bathed in a soft amber glow, not torchlight, something softer, gentler. You glance up, lanterns small and suspended by silken cords now lit along the ceiling. Each one pulses gently like a firefly inhaling. Someone or something has lit them. They want you to see what comes next. You walk. The corridor leads into a long arched hall lined with marble columns and narrow windows high above. Moonlight drips in from above like melted silver. In the center of the hall, placed carefully on a raised platform, sits a low, round box. You approach. It's covered in a deep blue cloth embroidered with gold thread in the pattern of swirling leaves and rising flames. You lift the cloth carefully, folding it back like a sacred letter, and reveal the box beneath. It's carved from dark wood, inlaid with copper, and something that looks suspiciously like lapis lazuli, though probably not enough to make a museum fight over it. You open the lid. Inside, letters, dozens, maybe hundreds. Thin sheets of linen paper, most still folded, sealed with wax or pressed flowers. The air smells like dried lavender and memory. You lift one. The wax is cracked, as if the seal broke long ago. You unfold the paper. The handwriting is careful, slanted, flourished in a style meant more for performance than speed. "My dearest sister," it begins. "I performed the temple dance last night in secret using the moves we practiced as children. I know they would not approve, but I felt our mother with me. Her spirit must have been watching. My limbs moved as if hers were inside them." You pause. A sister, a shared inheritance, a hidden lineage passed not through names but through movement. You read on. "I will return to the kitchen before sunrise so they do not notice I was missing, but I left my shoes in the chamber. If they are found, let them be seen. Let them remind someone." You fold the letter slowly, holding it for a moment before returning it to the box. You lift another sealed with pressed lavender. "To the dancer I saw at dusk." This one is anonymous, a confession, a memory of witnessing someone's secret performance seen from a distance. The writer describes the way the dancer's arms sliced the air, how her robe shimmered in the fading light, how she bowed to no altar, but still made the gods turn their heads. You read letter after letter, some short, some too long for ink to contain. They speak of hidden rehearsals, dances done barefoot on rooftops, secret ceremonies held in the abandoned corners of the temple. One writer claims her performance stopped a fever from spreading through her village. Another insists she felt the statue of the goddess breathe during her final movement. Historians, of course, would scoff at these accounts. Some already do, calling them emotional ephemera or ritualized diary entries. The academic term is post-function mysticism, which is a fancy way of saying people kept dancing even when no one told them to, but you You believe them, because your own body has started doing it too. Your feet shift, not dancing, not yet, but preparing, as if they too have something to say. You take one final letter from the box. It's different, no wax, no seal, just folded once and written in tight, nervous hand. To whoever finds this, take what you need. Move the way we were meant to. The temple no longer punishes, it remembers, and that is far more powerful. You fold the letter carefully and tuck it into your robe, not to keep it, to carry it. The air shifts again. A breeze curls in from the far end of the hallway. You follow it, and as you near the exit, you notice a small alcove you hadn't seen before. Inside, tucked between two columns, is a narrow bench. On it, a pair of shoes. Slippers, really. Embroidered in soft green, frayed at the edges, soles worn almost translucent. You crouch beside them. They look your size. You don't take them. Instead, you press your fingers to their edge. The stone beneath the slippers warms. Above the bench, etched into the stone, is another inscription so faint it's almost invisible. Every dancer leaves something behind. You rise, your arms lift slightly, not in a conscious decision, but in response, like a sail catching wind. The cuffs on your wrists feel heavier now, but not burdensome, weighted with presence. You begin to move, just slightly, a step, a curve of the spine, a twist of the hips, not for show, not for anyone else, just to leave something behind. You reach the end of the hall, another door, taller, carved with spirals and wings, open just enough to let in the faintest flicker of morning light. You glance back. The hallway is still. The letters in the box are still breathing their soft, perfumed truths into the air. The slippers remain. But now one of them tilts slightly to the side, like someone wore it recently. Like someone danced here long after the music stopped. You slip through the tall door, letting it ease shut behind you with the softness of a held breath. On the other side lies a courtyard, open to the sky, bathed in pre-dawn blue. The kind of light that doesn't commit to being morning, but has clearly given up on being night. You blink, adjusting. The air is cooler here and tinged with something citrus, lemon blossom maybe, or some long-lost fruit once placed as an offering, and now remembered only by the wind. Stone tiles stretch outward beneath your feet, patterned in pale, swirling mosaics. In the center, a small fountain trickles lazily, its bowl surrounded by knee-high hedges and flowering vines that shouldn't logically still be alive, but they are. It's quiet, but not empty. Your eye catches on a series of alcoves circling the courtyard, 12 in total, each with a worn statue inside. All are dancers, different stances, different bodies, different moments. One spins with her skirt flared like a bell. Another bends low arms overhead like she's gathering invisible light. You walk slowly past each one. Their faces are stylized, yes, but not anonymous. These were individuals, people. You can see it in the lips slightly curled in concentration, in the fingers carved mid-twitch. And there, tucked behind the third alcove, is something that makes your chest tighten. A carved stone plaque worn fractured across the middle. But still readable, just barely. Saffron silk and scandal, it reads. You laugh softly, because you've heard that phrase before. The scroll tucked in the wall behind the mural. The scandal, the robe, the dancer who seduced the emperor, or maybe embarrassed him into banning the dance altogether. And now you're standing in front of what may well be her statue. She stands with one hand on her hip, and the other raised in a half-wave, half-dismissal, regal, irreverent. Her face is carved with deliberate detail, the smirk unmistakable even after erosion. You stare at her and imagine her voice. You came all this way just to stare. Honey, at least bow. You do. Or something close to it. The courtyard is warm now, as if the stone has stored centuries of secret sunrises just for this moment. You wander toward a bench along the outer edge. There's fabric folded atop it. Deep blue, almost black in the early light. You unfold it. A shawl. Silk fraying at the edges, embroidered with flame motifs and unfinished glyphs. You run your fingers along the hem and feel a bump, something sewn into the lining. You unpick the stitching gently. A folded square of parchment falls into your lap. Another letter, this one is short, scrawled in a quick, almost impatient hand. If they ever find this shawl, tell them I kept dancing. Tell them I wasn't sorry. No name, no date, just defiance wrapped in velvet. You fold the letter and refasten the shawl, gently smoothing the fabric back into place. Then you drape it over your shoulders. It fits, not physically, emotionally. Across the courtyard, another door stands slightly ajar. You approach, and just before you step through, you glance back at the statue of the smirking dancer. Her stone eyes seem to glint in the morning light. You're sure, absolutely sure, that her smirk just got half a centimeter wider. Inside the door is a corridor filled with silk drapes hanging from ceiling to floor, dyed in deep reds and golden ochres. The light filters through them like you're walking inside a stained glass dream. Your footsteps go quiet here, muffled by the softness of the air itself. You part the curtains slowly. On the other side, a circular room, smaller than others, intimate. Sacred somehow without being grand. At the center sits a dressing table, a real one, carved from wood with a mirror slightly warped by time. Vials and pots are arranged across it, old cosmetics, rouge, kohl, dried pigments, a comb carved from ivory and inlaid with jade. You sit. There's a note pinned to the mirror, a single line barely visible in the soft light. History is written in ink, but memory prefers rouge. You smile because yes, that tracks. You dip your fingers into one of the pots. The pigment is still soft. You press a bit to your cheeks, unsure if it's ceremonial or just lovely. Either way, the moment feels complete. Beside the pigments, there's a shallow wooden box. Inside jewelry, not gold, nothing flashy, but personal. Hairpins, ankle bells, a tiny brass pendant shaped like a spiral. You lift the pendant and clasp it around your neck. It hums. No, really it hums. Softly. Just for a second you look down at it. It's warm. Of course it is. You rise from the bench and glance at yourself in the mirror one last time. You look like someone you would have admired as a child, someone who would have terrified the temple scribes, someone who would have danced anyway. As you leave the room, your footsteps echo differently now, not louder, just more deliberate. Outside, the morning has begun in earnest. The sky bleeds orange and soft gold, and a single bird calls from the highest arch. You pause, and something catches your eye, a petal, fresh, on the edge of the mosaic platform in the courtyard. Another, then another. A slow trail leading east toward a low archway where the breeze smells like mint and smoke and something faintly ceremonial. You follow because of course you do, because someone is still dancing. And they've left the music behind for you to find. The petal trail leads you beneath the archway where the temple shifts again, less formal now, more like the back hallways of a theatre. The stone is smoother here, worn down not by pilgrims, but by bare feet and hasty exits. The air smells faintly of mint, yes, but also ash and rose oil, a fragrance cocktail of devotion and mischief. You follow the petals. They're fresher here, more vibrant, less trampled by time. Some even seem recently plucked, their edges curling only just at the tips. Whoever dropped them wasn't just passing through, they were leaving a message. Around a bend, the hallway opens into a small antechamber. Warm light glows from above. Soft, natural. A vent in the ceiling. A trick of early sun, you don't bother figuring it out. Some mysteries are more generous when left unanswered. In the middle of the room, a stone dais waist-high etched with glyphs and delicate reliefs. Atop it sits a lacquered wooden box. Smaller than the one with the letters, more ornate. And next to it, pressed neatly into the groove between stone tiles, a single peacock feather. You crouch slowly, not just any feather. This one has been preserved with care, its colours still vivid blues and greens and golds that shimmer like oil in water. A slender silver wire is wrapped around the base, not decoration, attachment. You lift it carefully. There's something underneath. A parchment. Not a scroll. A letter written in flowing hand.
If you've found the feather, you've found me. You glance around, half expecting someone to step from the shadows. No one does. You keep reading. My headdress was hidden in this temple, behind the east pillar of the chamber with the 12 statues. I left it when I knew they were coming for me. Not because I was afraid, because I wanted it found. Your breath catches. The headdress. The one whispered about in the scrolls. The final piece worn by the last dancer before the ban, said to hold enough energy to summon visions or madness depending on who's interpreting the footnotes. You remember the chamber. You were there. You saw the statues. You walked past that very pillar. She left it there for someone, maybe for you. You return the letter to its place and turn your attention to the lacquered box. It's carved with floral designs, lotus, peony flame. You press your palm to the lid. The wood is smooth, cool, humming faintly beneath your skin. You open it.
Inside a headdress, no mistaking it. Intricate silver wires arc like sunrise rays from a central band, each tipped with a tiny mirror shard, or gemstone obsidian amber, perhaps even a garnet or two. Silk tassels hang from either side, faintly perfumed. The peacock feather clearly belongs to one of the side ports, long empty. You hold it in your hands and the room quiets. You're not alone. Not in the supernatural sense, in the historical one. This headdress has been worn by someone brave, someone foolish, someone unforgettable. You wonder what her last dance looked like. If she finished, if she got to bow. You attach the feather where it belongs. It clicks in with surprising ease. You raise the headdress, let it hover above your brow, and pause. Because once it touches your skin, there's no turning back. No pretending this was just a dream or a sleepwalking tour through architectural ruins. This is commitment, and you place it gently onto your head. It fits. Of course it does. And with it, a whisper, not a voice, a memory, not words, a sequence, a series of steps turning through your mind like candlelight through a prism. Movements not yet made, gestures yet to be discovered. But you already know them. Somewhere inside you, the phrase left pause, turn right bow, ripples through your spine, not language, instruction. You step away from the dais feather, gently swaying. It doesn't feel like wearing a crown. It feels like balancing a secret. Outside the antechamber, The petals continue. You follow. The hallway narrows before opening again into a smaller room, one you somehow missed before. Circular, enclosed, more intimate than ceremonial. The walls are adorned with delicate paintings, each one a still frame of a dancer mid-motion. Not stylized, personal, unfinished. And across the floor a faded spiral carved into the tile. Your feet recognize it before your eyes do. You step into the center. The air shifts.
Not colder, just attentive. You begin to move. Not the full dance, just pieces. The feather sways in rhythm mirrors, catching flickers of your robe. You raise your arms, the cuffs glinting as your wrists twist in the familiar roll. Then something subtle changes. A gust of wind, inside, impossible. You stop. The wind circles you, barely there. Like someone sighing from the rafters. A draft made of breath and memory. Your eyes go to the ceiling. Nothing. Just stone and stillness. You take one more step, and the wind disappears. But on the wall behind you, a mural has changed. No, not changed. Completed. One of the dancers now wears your headdress. The mirror shards, the feather, the tilt of your chin. You stare, you reach out. The paint is still wet, fresh. You pull your hand back, stained with a fine sheen of gold and indigo. The temple isn't just remembering, it's recording. You
stand fingertips tingling with fresh pigment facing a mural that now bears your likeness. The tilt of your shoulder, the slope of your neck, it's unmistakable. The artist, if there is one, either knows you intimately or is the temple itself. You stare for a few heartbeats longer, caught somewhere between awe and absurdity. And then a laugh bubbles in your throat. Of course the wall painted you. Why not? You've danced in silence, resurrected a banned ritual, worn a goddess's jewelry, and followed a breadcrumb trail of rose petals into the underground memory of an ancient religion. A sentient mural, sure. Add it to the list right after took fashion advice from a 600-year-old letter. You wipe your hand on your robe, there's already gold dust in the seams, what's a little blue, and turn back toward the door. The spiral under your feet pulses faintly as you step off it. Not literally, not visually, but your souls feel it. Like you've just left the center of something important. Like stepping off a carousel that never quite stopped spinning. Back in the hallway, the petal trail continues, and now other things have joined it. Slips of ribbon, thin silken strands, some tied in loose bows, others dropped like thoughts forgotten mid-prayer. One is bright orange, another sea green, a third embroidered with the word echo. You pick that one up and smile. A dancer's keepsake, maybe, or a message. You tuck it into your sleeve and walk on. The corridor begins to widen, floor stones giving way to polished marble, and the light changes again, brighter now, but not artificial. It's morning, full, brilliant morning. And ahead, the air is buzzing. Buzzing not with sound, but with intention. The festival has begun. You reach the far end of the corridor and find yourself at a high balcony overlooking the temple's inner courtyard. It's massive, open to the sky, surrounded by terraced steps, filled with people, priests, pilgrims, guards, market wives in silk wraps, children pointing at statues, color everywhere, noise swelling, joyous and expectant. You'd forgotten what a crowd sounded like, but this isn't ordinary celebration, because at the far end of the courtyard, a grand stage has been prepared. Circular, like the inner chambers, marked with petal dust and powdered chalk. At its center, a single spiral, drawn large enough for everyone to see, and all around it symbols of every temple faction, sun banners, moon glyphs, sacred animals stitched into flags, even the royal crest. Your breath catches because someone has recreated the exact stage described in the Forbidden Scrolls, the layout, the circle, the markings, even the timing. Today is the only day each year that the temple doors remain open from dawn until dusk. You scan the crowd for priests in gold-threaded robes, waiting with disapproval. None.
Instead, musicians, dozens. Drummers tuning their instruments, flute players lining up in neat rows, a few lyre bearers adjusting chords that glint like starlight. You wonder for a moment if they know what's about to happen, if any of them know you are about to happen. Then someone taps your shoulder. You turn. A young temple girl, maybe 14, eyes lined with kohl, expression composed, but hiding a flicker of mischief. She gestures to the headdress on your brow, then points to the stairway beside you. Time. You nod. No words. Your voice is somewhere far below, still asleep in a scroll jar. The girl turns and disappears again into the stonework, like she was never there. You descend the stairs. People don't part for you. They don't gasp, but they sense something. Heads turn slowly. Eyes soften. Conversations pause. You hear someone whisper, "Is that?" And someone else hush them with a low shh. Your feet know where to go. Left, down, right, through the arch.
Past the musicians, onto the platform. The sun is almost perfectly above. You step into the spiral. The courtyard stills. It doesn't go silent, just slows, as if every sound drops to half speed, like time wants to watch too. You begin, not with a leap, not with a pose, with a breath. One deep inhale, the kind that fills your spine and lengthens your fingertips. Then you move, one step. Two. An arm arc the lift of your chin, a deliberate drop of the shoulder. The crowd doesn't cheer, doesn't clap. They watch because they know without being told that this isn't entertainment, this is return, this is resurrection, this is defiance disguised as grace. You continue. The dance moves through you, sequence by sequence. Some you've studied, others feel completely new. But your body remembers. You remember the ankle cuff, the scroll ink, the warm bowl in the hidden chamber. You remember the woman who danced with you and wore your face. You remember the wind that moved indoors and the mural that finished itself in your image. And you remember now what this moment was meant to be. You finish the sequence and lower yourself into a wide kneel, arms extended like wings, collapsing gently into stillness. The courtyard holds its breath. Then nothing, no applause, no music, just stillness. And that's enough. You rise. And in the far corner of the courtyard, a woman in a crimson shawl stands. She lifts her hand, the same spiral gesture you learned on the dust-covered floor. She smiles, and so do you. The woman in the crimson shawl lowers her hand slowly, her smile lingering like the tail of a melody. You don't recognize her, but also you do. Not by name, not by face, by rhythm. She holds herself like someone who's danced this path before, who knows the weight of every gesture and the silence that follows. Others in the courtyard begin to shift, not rise, not applaud, but murmur. A breeze cuts through the open space, lifting veils and banners, and with it, the scent of saffron again. You close your eyes briefly. When you open them, the spiral beneath your feet is glowing barely subtly, as if reacting to the heat of memory. The crowd begins to stir, conversations rising again, but more hushed, reverent, curious. You step back from the center row, brushing the chalk lines. No one stops you. No one approaches. You're not arrested. You're not crowned. You're not praised, and yet every eye that meets yours seems to know, not everything, but enough. You slip quietly through the edge of the courtyard, past the flutists, past the drummer now tapping softly against his thigh. You return to the hallway behind the platform where the stones are warm and familiar beneath your feet. Inside the temple is cooler again, quieter. The light is filtered golden sacred. You breathe. Then you laugh softly, because your foot nudged something. You look down. A piece of fabric lies folded neatly on the floor. Small square, probably once part of a veil or sash. Embroidered along the edge in tiny, deliberate stitches are the words "address" stitched from memory. You crouch, pick it up gently. The fabric is soft, thinner than you'd expect for its age, and faintly perfumed. Jasmine this time, the first scent from the first night. Someone left this for you, or dropped it knowing you'd find it. You turn it over. On the reverse side, a symbol, the same spiral, but this time something's different. At the center of the spiral is a single stitch in red thread, a tiny dot, a heart maybe, a blood drop, a seed. The embroidery doesn't explain itself. You tuck the cloth into your robe. The corridor ahead is quiet now, as if the temple, satisfied that you've remembered enough for one morning, is letting you catch your breath. You reach the room where the shawl had been. It's empty now, the bench cleared, the pigment pots closed. Someone's tidied up. You chuckle. Temple caretakers, eternal in both presence and passive aggression. You glance at the mirror again, your face flushed, from the dance haloed with sweat and sunlight. And that headdress, still perfect, still heavy in the way that means this mattered. You lean forward, press a single fingertip to the glass. Your reflection distorts just slightly enough to make your expression look like it's in motion. You whisper, "I remember." No one answers, except your own voice echoing softly back with the whisper of movement beneath it. You exit the chamber and head down a hall to the east wing, one you haven't yet explored. It's dimmer here, as if the windows have narrowed or the walls have thickened with history. You pause before one mural, smaller than the others, unfinished. A woman with her arms raised, her hands empty, her body mid-motion, but no eyes, just smooth stone where the face should be. You look at it a long time, then step closer. At your presence, the surface shifts slightly, a shimmer, a flicker, and then faintly your eyes appear in the stone, not carved, not painted, reflected. You blink, so does she. Then the image fades again, back into blankness. You touch the surface, cool, solid, silent. And yet you know she saw you. This was not art, this was a memory. You move on, and soon the corridor leads you into another courtyard, smaller, enclosed on all sides. In its center, a raised platform with 4 low stools surrounding it. Atop the platform, a single folded robe, white, unadorned, a blank slate. You approach. One of the stools bears a cushion with the same flame pattern embroidered into the shawl you wore earlier. You sit. The breeze moves around the courtyard, lifting the white robe gently, as if in approval. This space feels different. Not sacred in the old sense, newly sacred. As if it's waiting for a new story, a new movement, a new dancer. A moment later, a woman enters through the far arch. Not the teacher, not the smirking statue, someone else. She carries a scroll which she places beside you without speaking, then leaves. You pick it up and unroll it. There is no title, no introduction, just a line. Historians still debate whether the dance was meant to honor the gods, or to remind them who gave them meaning in the first place. Below that, an invitation: write what you remember, draw what your limbs have known. So the next dancer won't have to ask. You sit quietly for a long moment, then reach for the stylus resting beside the scroll, and begin. You draw the first step: a curve, a spin, a spiral marked with a single red stitch at its center. The temple is still, but no longer silent. The stylus glides smoothly over the scroll, carving a soft line that feels more like a caress than ink. Your hand moves without planning, without overthinking, drawing not from technique, but from memory buried deeper than thought. The spiral comes first, of course. It always does. Then a raised arm, a foot poised above the floor, a curved spine mid-turn. You pause, not because you've run out of moves to remember, but because the stylus is warm. It radiates a quiet heat, pulsing faintly with each line you draw. Not uncomfortable, just alive. You lift it briefly and watch the tip cool in the morning air, then press it gently against your palm. No ink, just warmth, okay? Not creepy at all. You resume sketching. Below the figure you've drawn, you begin to write. Not in full sentences, not yet. Just gestures in words. Arm rises with breath. Knees soften. Weight spirals through the ribs. Pause before the bow. These aren't instructions, they're invitations. Open doors for someone else to step through later. You wonder if the scroll you're writing will ever make it into that lacquered box of letters, or if it will be burned, buried, hidden in another dancer's sleeve. No matter. You keep writing. After a while, you lean back, stylus in your lap. You reread what you've drawn, and in the margins, unintentionally, you've written a phrase. 3 times the body remembers. You smile. There's a theory among temple scholars, one of the less accepted ones, that certain dances weren't choreographed but discovered. That the first dancers didn't invent them so much as uncover them. The movements were already in the body waiting to be found, like fossils, like truths. Historians still argue whether this is mystical nonsense or just poetic metaphor for muscle memory. You think it's both. You roll the scroll and tuck it under your arm. The courtyard is still, but the air has shifted. A breeze carries the scent of sandalwood sharper than before. The kind of scent that clings to priests' robes and old prayer beads. The kind that always arrives before a formal announcement. And sure enough, a bell rings somewhere deep in the temple. Not the high, shrill ring of ceremony. A low chime. Measured, patient. Like a slow breath before speaking. You rise and follow the sound. It guides you through a narrow passage into another chamber, this one unlike any you've entered before. The floor here is covered in reed mats. The walls bear no murals, no statues, just thin vertical windows that let in columns of light like spotlights from the sun itself. At the center of the room, seated on a low stool, is a man. Old, robed, eyes closed, breathing in a rhythm that seems older than his bones. He opens his eyes as you enter. Doesn't speak. Just studies you. Not judging, not testing, just taking you in like you're a line in a book he once read and forgot to underline. Then he gestures. You step forward and place the scroll in front of him. He picks it up and reads without urgency. When he finishes, he looks at you again. He smiles and speaks. One step is not the end of a path. Then he gestures again toward a bench against the far wall. Upon it lies a folded garment, pale gold, woven from a fabric finer than anything you've worn before. You pick it up. It's a dress, a new one, stitched in patterns that echo your own drawing. You look up, but the man is gone. No sound, just absence, which is starting to feel like the temple's way of saying, "You're welcome." You change in silence. The fabric hugs your body, gently cool and light. When you move it, whispers. You cross the room, the windows casting long columns of gold across your path. Outside you see the courtyard again, still filled with people. They've not left. They've not moved on. The air is still thick with anticipation. You descend the stone steps toward the outer circle of the gathering, but something's different. They're not looking at the spiral platform anymore. They're looking at you. All of them, and yet no one reaches for you. No one calls out, because this moment isn't a coronation, it's a handoff. You step forward and raise your arms, palms open, fingers loose. Not a performance, a reminder that the body remembers that the dance was never truly forbidden, only delayed. And somewhere in the hush of the morning you hear it again, a single clap. And this time you're the one who answers. You hold your stance for a moment longer, arms suspended in stillness like the breath just before a storm or a sunrise. The courtyard remains hushed, not tense, expectant, as if every pair of eyes is asking the same question. Will you begin again? You lower your arms, slowly, let the golden fabric fall around you like a closing curtain, and without waiting for a cue or ceremony, you step off the stone path and into the gathered crowd. They part for you gently, not in reverence, but in recognition. The way you might step aside for someone walking a road they clearly belong to. You smile at a child holding a fig in one hand and a wooden flute in the other. He stares, wide-eyed, mouth slightly open, as if you've stepped out of a bedtime story, which, to be fair, you kind of have. Someone hands you a flower. You nod in thanks and tuck it behind your ear. You don't even ask who they are. Here in this moment, names feel excessive. You make your way to the edge of the temple grounds, where a low wall separates the sacred from the everyday. Beyond it lies the city rooftops cluttered with laundry lines and doves markets already humming with morning bustle, smoke rising from breakfast fires. And yet none of it feels separate from this place anymore, because once you've danced through stone and shadow and scented scrolls, the sacred doesn't stay behind. It follows, it lingers, it seeds the ordinary. You sit on the edge of the wall, letting your legs dangle, letting your heartbeat slow. From here you can see a rooftop across the plaza, and on it, two women, barefoot robes, loose, dancing slowly. Not for spectacle, not even for each other, just to remember. You grin. The forbidden dance has already escaped the temple, and no one even noticed. You pull the scroll from your sleeve, your scroll, the one with your drawing, your words, the one the old man read, then vanished without comment. You unroll it again and find something new. A second page. You definitely didn't write this part. The ink is different. The hand, unfamiliar, angular and sharp, like someone writing with a dagger's edge. It reads, "You've returned the rhythm, but now, will you protect it?" There's no signature. You stare at the words a long time, trying to figure out if it's a warning or a blessing disguised as one, or maybe just a question that never needed answering. The shawl you wore earlier is now folded in your lap. You run your fingers along the embroidery, feeling for anything you might have missed. A stitch, a pocket, a symbol. and find it. A tiny clasp hidden at the hem, inside a scrap of parchment barely 2 fingers wide. On it, the glyph for moon crossed with the glyph for voice. You've seen that pairing before, on the pedestal beside the sealed scroll chamber, where the silent dancers once rehearsed in secret. So maybe that's the next place, or maybe that's a metaphor, or a reminder that moonlight was always another kind of stage lighting. You fold the note and tuck it back where it came from. Behind you, a small group of young girls dances in the outer courtyard, mimicking the movements they saw you perform hours, or was it minutes ago? One of them raises her arms too high, spins too fast, trips over her hem, and laughs before she even hits the ground. The laughter spreads through the group, and somehow it feels more sacred than the old hymns. You rise from the wall, and behind you the temple breathes, not metaphorically. You hear it a low exhale through a vent near the ceiling, as if stone lungs were letting go of centuries. You walk the perimeter of the outer courtyard again, running your hand along the temple wall as you pass. The stone feels warm beneath your fingertips, soft even, like skin. At one corner, a basket sits on the ground, half covered with cloth. You lift it gently and find inside a handful of small items: dried petals, tiny bronze bells, a single curved sandal strap, relics maybe, or offerings. You take one of the bells and attach it to your sash. It jingles softly, enough to keep you tethered to motion. From behind, a voice murmurs, "Where did you learn to dance like that?" You turn. It's a young man, maybe a temple scribe, robes ink-stained and uneven, clearly having sprinted from some scholarly hiding place. He's panting, wide-eyed. You pause, smile, and say, "I didn't." He looks confused. You shrug, "I remembered," and walk on, because now the real dance begins. You step out through the southern arch, where the temple wall gives way to a quiet garden you didn't know existed. It's not decorative, not formal, wild in the best way. Olive trees lean lazily in the sun. Herbs grow in crowded chaos, mint spilling over thyme lavender, elbowing out sage. Bees hum in the heavy air like tiny winged tambourines. You find a worn path threading through the tangle, just wide enough for a single set of footprints. It curves toward a shallow pool, its surface scattered with blossoms and fallen leaves. In its reflection, your face looks less like a dancer and more like a traveler, someone who's seen things they weren't supposed to, and somehow, instead of being broken by it, became clearer. You sit by the water's edge, dipping your hand into the cool surface. The ripple moves outward in circles, silent applause from the earth itself. Behind you, wind rustles through the olive branches, and with it, a faint clinking sound like metal brushing metal. You turn, expecting another bell, another offering, but it's a small wind chime hanging from a tree branch, handmade, twisted wire, broken beads, and a single coin strung through the center. You reach up and still it with your fingers. On the coin's face, barely legible from age, is the same glyph you found embroidered on the hidden scrap of cloth moon crossed with voice. And suddenly you remember the chamber with the sealed scrolls, the symbol carved above the threshold. You thought it was a decorative flourish, but it was a warning, or a password, or both. The voice of the moon, the forbidden sound that once accompanied the forbidden dance. You rise. The wind picks up as if to urge you along, tugging gently at your robe. Back through the garden, back into the temple. You pass by a small alcove where two temple novices sit cross-legged painting symbols onto narrow strips of parchment. One of them looks up as you pass and nods. Not out of politeness, but out of recognition. They've heard. You don't ask how, you just nod in return. As you move through the temple's inner corridors, something settles in your chest. A quiet knowing the dance was never just about movement. It was about returning to stories left untold, to rhythms buried under ritual, to voices that were quieted not because they were false, but because they were unapologetically true. You step back into the chamber with the 12 statues. The one you first entered, what feels like weeks ago, though in truth it might have only been a single dawn. You approach the eastmost statue, the one nearest the wall where the hidden headdress had been. Her eyes are carved downward modest, her hands clasped in a gesture of waiting. But you notice now a small indentation in her left palm. You press your own fingers to it, a soft click, and the base of the statue shifts. A narrow drawer slides out with a low scrape. Inside a parchment, sealed in wax. The wax bears a different spiral, this one tight, unbroken, endless. You break the seal, it's not a letter, it's a score. Music. Carefully drawn notations marked with symbols and instructions you almost but not quite understand. The notes curve upward like tendrils of smoke, between them glyphs not for pitch or rhythm but for gesture. A phrase in the margin reads, "For the voice that moves without breath." You stare at the page for a long moment. You know what this is. This is the moon's song. The melody that once accompanied the dance, played only under full moons, with instruments now long broken and voices long gone quiet. But the melody still lives here, in ink, in parchment, in your hands. You press the score to your chest and close your eyes. Behind your eyelids movement, a slow turn, arms rising like waves, a foot placed gently in the groove of the spiral. You take the parchment with you, back through the corridor, back past the mural that once finished itself in your image, back to the scriptorium. You find an empty spot on the shelf just beside a faded scroll tied with copper string. You place the moon's song there, pressing it flat. A breath of wind moves across the shelf, rustling the scrolls. Approval. You walk back toward the open courtyard. The crowd is gone now, the space quiet again. But something about the silence feels different, like a held note, like the pause before the next dancer begins. You walk the length of the platform once more, feeling the stone beneath your soles, the way it warms with each step. The spiral still holds your energy, still remembers your breath. As you reach the far side of the courtyard, you find a folded cloth, cream-colored, simple. Inside it, a fresh scroll, blank, waiting. You take it. Because some stories aren't finished, some movements don't end, they echo. You cradle the blank scroll in your hands, its weight negligible, but its potential impossibly heavy. It isn't just paper, it's permission. It's the soft whisper of the temple asking, "What now?" You sit on the edge of the courtyard once again, where sunlight dangles lazily from the archways and shadows stretch like cats at rest. The wind has calmed and the jasmine scent has returned, barely there, like the ghost of a dream you're just about to forget, but can still taste if you're still enough. You place the scroll in your lap and trace a spiral in the corner, not because you need to, but because you want it to know where it belongs. What you write on it next, well, that's the thing. You don't know yet, and maybe that's fine. Not all stories begin with answers. Some begin with listening. You close your eyes and do just that. Listen. You hear the faint clinking of anklets from far down the corridor. Laughter, soft and unsupervised, the kind that comes from people learning something sacred but playful. The temple isn't a monument anymore. It's alive, breathing, moving again. Somewhere nearby, a song begins. You're not sure who sings it. A woman, maybe, or a flute. The voice is high and old, but not frail. It doesn't sound like a performance. It sounds like someone weaving breath into history. And woven into it, yes, you hear the rhythm. The rhythm of your dance. They've remembered it, or at least their version of it. You rise. Walk toward the eastern corridor where the light runs long and the air feels denser with memory. You pass a row of archways and stop before the fourth. A woman stands inside, facing away. She's dressed in pale green, her hair twisted into coils, anklets, shimmering softly in the beam of light, slicing down the wall. She lifts one arm, then the other. Her spine curves like water in a clay jar. You know the sequence. You taught it, even if you didn't mean to. She finishes the phrase and turns. Her eyes widen slightly when she sees you. But she doesn't bow. She smiles and nods, then returns to her dance. You move on. The temple isn't echoing you anymore. It's echoing with you. You return to the chamber with the pool where the surface once reflected your face beside the dancer of the past. You kneel beside it again. This time, your reflection looks different. Not because your robe has changed or your headdress sits heavier on your brow, but because you're no longer just you. You are made of stories now, of borrowed movements and inherited silences, and letters slipped between walls. And in the water you see her again, the woman who smiled up at you, the one who danced herself out of history and into something longer. She doesn't move this time. She watches and waits, as if to ask, what will you give to the next dancer? You reach into your robe and retrieve the ribbon, the one embroidered with echo. You tie it around your wrist, a promise. Then rise. You pass once more through the mural chamber. The version of you on the wall is clearer now, the colors deeper, the background more vivid. The crowd has been added, barely sketched, but present. They're not watching, they're following. And beside you, a new figure has appeared. Smaller, mid-turn, arms loose and wild, the girl from the outer courtyard. One of the children. They've started painting her. You laugh quietly, heartful of something between pride and surrender. You descend again into the scroll chamber. This time, you don't take a letter. You leave one. You untie your own scroll, the one you'd been keeping, and tuck it beside a scroll with a green thread, the one that smelled of mint and ink. Your scroll doesn't have a signature, just a phrase at the top, dance what they forgot. As you rise, a gust of wind stirs the parchments, and the smell of rose returns subtle but definite. Approval. Outside, the sun has shifted. Long shadows stretch across the platform, now softening the edges of the stone. You step onto it once more, barefoot this time. The ground is warm, not just from heat, from memory. You kneel, place both hands flat on the spiral, and whisper, not aloud, but through the press of your palms, I remember. And beneath your fingers the stone hums back. The hum beneath your hands is subtle, like a cat purring under a thick blanket. You press your palms more firmly to the stone, not to test it, just to be sure you're not imagining the resonance. You're not. The temple is awake. You rise slowly, hands tingling, and glance toward the sky. The sun has drifted westward now, leaning into the late afternoon. The courtyard is quieter. The crowd has dispersed, returning to market stalls and shaded doorways and naps beneath linen awnings. But the spiral remains. Not just the one on the platform, the idea of it, the rhythm of it. You feel it still circling beneath your feet like a song stuck in your bones. And the thing about spirals, they never really end. You step off the platform and walk the long outer corridor of the temple. Here the walls are less decorated, more utilitarian. Storage niches, empty candle stands, small benches used by dancers waiting their turn, or scholars resting in between scrolls, and one basket left on its side, petals spilled from it, dried now, curling inward. You crouch to inspect it, half expecting a note tucked beneath them. But no, just a single hairpin curved like a crescent moon. You pick it up. Cool metal, simple, elegant, not valuable in a market sense, but priceless to whoever left it behind. You tuck it into your robe and move on. At the far end of the corridor, you reach a door cracked just slightly. You remember this one, the musician's room. You passed it earlier before the performance. You push it open gently. Inside, low cushions and carved instruments lie in lazy disarray. A harp rests across the lap of an older woman, her fingers trailing absently across the strings, as if she's playing a tune that hasn't yet decided to be born. She looks up when you enter. Her eyes crinkle with warmth. She gestures to the cushion beside her. You sit without hesitation. I heard the echo, she says. Her voice is smooth like polished wood. Not reverent, not dramatic, just certain. I didn't know if anyone would ever finish the sequence again. You say nothing, there's nothing to say. The echo finished you just as much. She plucks a note, then another. And then there it is, the moon's song, soft, crooked, ancient. You listen, heart thudding. It's not perfect. A note drifts off here, another slips under her fingers. But you recognize it. The rhythm from the scroll, the gesture from the headdress, the hush that lived between every spin you made on the platform. She plays it once through, then stops, looks at you sideways. Well, she asks, will you remember it out loud? You rise slowly. The stone beneath your feet feels warm again. You step forward gently, clearing the floor with your sleeve. A small spiral, just with your finger, in the dust. No fanfare. You move. A single gesture, then two. The rhythm of the moon's song seeps into your limbs. You don't try to perform. You try to answer. Every note from the harp shapes your next gesture. You're not leading, you're following. And in following you make it new. The harpist smiles as she plays, her eyes half-lidded, nodding with each twist of your wrist, each bend of your waist. Good, she murmurs. That's how it was always meant to be. Not taught, remembered. You finish with your arms crossed over your chest, head bowed. Not because you meant to, because your body asked to. She plucks one last chord and lets it fade. Then she leans toward you, eyes suddenly sharper. There's one more movement. You tilt your head. She taps the floor with her toe. It was never written down, she says. Not on any scroll, not in any mural. It was considered too personal, too sacred. She leans back again and closes her eyes. So you have to invent it. And if it's true, the temple will remember it. You nod. That feels right. You leave the musician's room and return to the central courtyard. The light is soft now, golden with the day's last generosity. No crowd, just long shadows. You step once more into the spiral. Let your body breathe and move. It's clumsy at first. New things often are. A lift of the arm, a turn of the heel, the flutter of your fingertips in the direction of nothing in particular. But something clicks. You shift weight to your back foot, lean slightly forward and press your hand over your heart. The final movement. Simple? Honest? Like a dancer saying, "This is who I am, and this is who I was before I forgot." You step back. Exhale. The spiral underfoot glows just for a moment, then fades. You look down at the stone. A new groove now joins the others. Shallow, fresh, your step, etched, remembered. You remain still for a while, feet at the center of the spiral, watching the sun's last rays kiss the courtyard's edge. There's no announcement, no trumpet, no divine applause, just quiet, and somehow that feels louder than anything else. Your step is etched into the stone now. You didn't see it happen, you didn't feel any carving, but it's there, fresh, faint, unmistakable. The final movement they never recorded, the one they left open, waiting for someone bold or foolish or sleepless enough to step forward. You step back, slowly, eyes never leaving the groove. You whisper, "There." And the temple listens. Behind you, the wind picks up again, curling softly through the arches. It doesn't pull at your robe, it tucks it, like fingers smoothing fabric before a portrait, like an old grandmother nodding quietly. Yes, that will do. You move through the temple now, not as a visitor, not as a dancer, but as part of its memory. The stones feel different beneath your feet, like they've accepted your weight. The lanterns flicker gently as you pass, not flaring, not dimming, just acknowledging. In the east corridor, you pass a young novice sweeping petals into a basket. She looks up startled at first, then smiles, not politely, knowingly. She leans forward and murmurs, "We saw you." You pause, unsure if she means the crowd or something else. She nods toward the mural corridor. It's already changed. You quicken your pace, bare feet silent as whispers, and turn the familiar corner. And there it is. The mural of the dancer mid-spin, the one that had slowly come to resemble you. It's different now, completed. The background no longer swirls abstractly. It shows the courtyard, the spiral platform, the crowd, the sun overhead, but most of all, you. In full motion, arms lifted in your final self-created gesture. The one no one had taught you. There's a new inscription just beneath the figure, the dancer who remembered forward. You blink. That wasn't there this morning. And neither was the second figure. Just behind you in the mural, only partially formed, is another dancer, shorter, robed in pale yellow, a hand outstretched toward your figure, as if preparing to follow your lead. You step closer. The brushwork is newer, less detailed. It's not finished, because they haven't danced yet, because someone else is coming next. You exhale. A strange joy rises up, quiet and warm, like the tail end of a fever that leaves you a little stronger. You leave the mural corridor for the last time, walking slowly back through the heart of the temple. The main hall now glows with late sun orange and amber melting into the high stonework. You pause under the great arch. There's a figure there, your teacher, veiled, motionless, the way you first found her. But she lifts her hand now, not to teach, not to beckon, just to bless, palm open, facing you. You match it, palm to palm at a respectful distance. She says nothing. She doesn't have to. You bow not in the way you did as a novice, but with the gentle acknowledgement of equals. Then she turns and walks through the inner sanctum, disappearing behind a curtain embroidered with flames and moons and spirals. You don't follow, you don't need to, you've gone where you were meant to. You head to the outer wall of the temple, to the gate that leads down into the city below. The heavy doors are open now, and the scent of saffron and figs and early dinner fires wafts in like an invitation. And just to your left, resting on a carved stone ledge, is a basket. Inside a robe, a simple one, unadorned, unstitched with power or memory. Just soft cotton dyed a gentle grey, a robe for walking home. You change slowly, folding the golden dancer's robe and laying it in the basket. You set your headdress beside it. A tiny bell rings when you do, one of the anklet charms. You smile and leave it behind. You step through the threshold into the golden light, bare feet on warm dust, and the city breathes around you. Children run past, squealing with figs and laughter. Someone's playing a lute in the distance. A cart creaks with pomegranates and goatskins. No one stops you. But you feel a few eyes linger, not on your face, on the echo still clinging to your shoulders. At the bottom of the hill, a small square. In the centre, a girl twirls in her mother's scarf. The scarf flutters awkwardly, and the girl laughs as she stumbles arms wide, trying to copy something she can't name. You smile and keep walking. Behind you, the temple fades into shadow. But it's not asleep anymore. It's watching, it's waiting, it's dancing, and so are you. You move through the city with the easy weightlessness of someone who has already done the hardest thing they came to do. The sounds of life wrap around you like a second robe. Merchants calling out prices for figs and lentils, the rhythmic slap of sandals on sun-warmed stone, the rustle of palm fronds overhead. But your steps still echo slightly differently. Not louder, not heavier, just noticed. Even the pigeons part for you a beat too early, like they know you've walked sacred ground. Or maybe you smell like old incense and temple dust and they don't want to take chances. You round a corner and find yourself at a tea stall, low tables, cushions that have seen better decades, and a copper kettle steaming faintly over coals. The woman behind the counter doesn't ask your name. She gestures to the middle cushion and says, "That one's waiting for you." You sit. She brings you a cup without asking your order. Rose and mint and something spiced clove, maybe. The scent lifts from the steam and curls around your face like a memory trying to come home. "Long day?" she asks with the faintest smile. You nod, sip. She raises an eyebrow. "You've got temple dust on your feet." You glance down. She's right. She hums, then turns back to her work, not needing your story. She's seen others return from the temple. Not many, but enough. You sit there longer than planned, sipping slowly, letting the weight in your limbs dissolve into the cushion, into the scent of boiling leaves and bread rising nearby. You watch as a pair of young girls dance in the alleyway beyond the stall, clapping their hands in rhythm, twirling with no coordination whatsoever. They're trying to mimic something, you don't know what. Maybe you, maybe each other, maybe just joy itself. You lean back, and the world narrows, softens, stretches, then there it is. The voice, not audible, not external. The other voice, the one that has lived just under your ribs since the moment you first stepped onto the spiral. She speaks. Not in language, in knowing. A phrase rises inside you like a tide. "You're not the last." And you laugh, quietly, because of course you're not. You finish your tea and leave a few coins on the table, even though the woman behind the counter is already nodding at someone else, already offering another cup to another story. You walk down toward the harbour, where the wind changes flavour. and the sea's rhythm threatens to replace the one that still plays in your chest. You stand by the edge of the docks and let it pull at your robe. You think about throwing the scroll case into the waves, or the anklet, or the last petal still stuck to your sash. But you don't. You keep them, not out of greed, out of generosity, because maybe someone else will need them. Maybe they'll find the spiral but not the step, the stage but not the song. Maybe they'll wake one night with the urge to move but not the memory. And maybe, just maybe, you'll have left behind enough to help them remember. You sit on the dock's edge and dangle your feet above the water. The sea laps the pylons beneath you in a quiet, endless rhythm. You tap your heel in time with it. Once, twice, then stop. Because the temple rhythm still sits higher in your spine, and you don't want to drown it out just yet. As the sun melts into the sea, the breeze changes again. It carries a scent you know far too well by now. Jasmine, again. You close your eyes, smile, and whisper, "I know."
I haven't forgotten. Behind you, someone begins to hum. You don't turn. You just breathe, because you know now. The spiral continues. The sun slips behind the waves like it's been rehearsing the same finale for 1,000 years, and the sky gives one last gasp of orange before sighing into lavender. You sit at the dock's edge, bare toes flirting with the evening chill, and let the hum behind you blend into the sounds of the sea. Lapping water creaking rope gulls making the worst case for reincarnation. The hum becomes a melody, low, soft, familiar. You recognize it before your mind does. It's the moon's song. You turn slowly. She's sitting a few planks down, a girl no older than 15. Legs crossed, eyes closed, lips parting around each note, like she's exhaling stories instead of air. She hums with the strange confidence of someone who's never been told not to. You wait until she's finished. She opens her eyes, sees you, and doesn't flinch.
Was I singing too loud? You shake your head. It's not a loud kind of song. She squints at you. Have you heard it before? You smile, a version of it. She thinks for a moment, then shrugs. It's been stuck in my head. I don't know where it came from. You pause. You danced today, she says. Not a question you don't answer, not with words. Just a small nod. She leans forward, elbows on her knees. My mother says the old dances are dangerous, that they wake things that shouldn't be awake. You raise an eyebrow. And what do you think? She shrugs. I think they make me want to move. You laugh, quiet and warm. I think that's the point you say. The girl reaches into a cloth pouch tied around her waist and pulls out a ribbon. Not ornate, plain cotton dyed with berry juice or something equally sticky. She hands it to you. I don't know the steps she says, but I dream them. You take the ribbon carefully, fingers brushing hers. You've received dozens of items in the temple scrolls, anklets, petals, half letters wrapped in linen, but this feels different. Not a relic, a beginning. Keep dreaming, you say. The body remembers, even before the mind does. She grins. That sounds like something a temple ghost would say. Maybe I am. Do temple ghosts drink fig wine, you grin, only on full moons? She laughs, and for a moment the dock feels like the edge of two worlds, past and present, sacred and silly, ancient and very much alive. A bell chimes somewhere up the hill, not the temple's, a city bell, the kind that tells you dinner's ready or curfew is near or someone's goat has escaped again. You rise. So does she. She stretches her arms out wide, tips her head back and spins once. Arms wobbly robe, flaring. like an idea not quite finished. Not bad, you say? I fell in a puddle doing it yesterday. Even better. She waves and darts down an alley, humming again.
And you stand for a while longer, the ribbon in your hand. The edge of the dock is darker now. Stars stretch overhead like someone flung salt across velvet. You tuck the ribbon into your belt and make your way through the lower streets where lanterns hang from doorways and oil sizzles in pans behind half-closed shutters. A woman leans out from a window 2 floors up and tosses a slice of melon to the street below. A child catches it with their mouth and bows dramatically. Laughter explodes from behind a curtain. This is not a city recovering from sacred revelation. This is a city that never stopped dancing. It just forgot the tune for a while. You pass a cracked wall covered in chalk symbols. Some are scribbles, some are surprisingly elegant. You pause when you spot a spiral drawn clumsily, sure, but unmistakable. Below it, a message in charcoal. She turned once and the world remembered its hips. You laugh out loud. You don't know who wrote it.
But you want to meet them. You move on the night, pulling its sleeves over the shoulders of the city. You make your way to a quiet square you remember from childhood fountain in the center. Stray cat curled like a cinnamon bun on the steps. You sit on the fountain's edge and exhale. It's quieter now, but not still. The city, like the temple, is holding its breath, not to silence the past, but to listen better for the future. Somewhere nearby, a door creaks open. A voice calls for someone to come home. Another hums a lullaby. You press your palm to your chest. You feel the rhythm there, still circling, still rising like tide water, ready to spill again. You whisper to no one and everyone, I'll keep dancing. Until the next one arrives. The square begins to empty as the night deepens, lanterns dimming one by one like slow blinks in a sleepy face. You rise from the fountain and stretch your arms over head joints, murmuring their little protests, reminders that sacred movements still age the body, just like mundane ones. Even miracles need a nap. You start walking again, ribbon tucked, snug into your belt, the spiral still quietly humming beneath your ribs. At the edge of the square, a woman selling roasted chestnuts catches your eye. She's old, wrapped in more shawls than the average loom produces in a month. Her fingers move with hypnotic rhythm, cracking shells without looking, tossing them into a small pouch for a boy who clearly intends to burn his tongue. She glances up at you, squints. You walk the spiral, you freeze, then nod, because lying would feel ridiculous. She doesn't ask for proof. She just pulls one roasted chestnut from the pan and hands it to you with a grin. Hot, but worth it. You take it. Too hot, of course. You juggle it awkwardly between your palms. She snorts. Same with the dance, I'd guess. You laugh. Pretty much. She taps her temple. Saw the last dancer do it 50 years ago, nearly forgot. Till tonight, you raise an eyebrow. You saw. She shrugs. My mother took me, said it was banned, said we shouldn't be there. And yet, forbidden just means someone's afraid of remembering. She turns back to her pan and you walk away, chestnut warming your hand like a tiny sun. As you head up a narrower lane, the houses press closer. The walls here are painted with sun-faded murals, some chipped, some retouched by optimistic children. You see echoes of temple shapes in them, spirals, crescents, open palms. The city remembers more than it admits. You pause outside a quiet doorway. You've stopped here before, years ago. The wooden sign above it is gone now, but the mark remains a small carved spiral, barely visible unless you already knew it was there. You knock. Once, twice. The door creaks open without a sound. Inside, silence, cool air, clay lamps casting small halos. You step in. It's not a shop anymore, not quite a home either. A long table runs the center of the room, covered in papers, bones, fabrics, tools. A woman looks up from a scroll she's studying, and after a beat, recognition flickers across her face. She smiles without surprise. "You're early," she says. You blink. For what? She stands brushing dust from her robe. For the archive. She gestures to the wall behind her. It's covered with drawings. Not murals, not scrolls, blueprints, diagrams of bodies mid-motion, lines charting the arc of a lifted arm, the angle of a spinning foot. There's math here, geometry embedded in grace, a language where hips and shoulders speak in angles instead of words. You step closer. They were trying to record it, you whisper. She nods, and failing. You touch one of the sketches. It's almost right. But it's missing something. Soul, maybe? Breath. That little moment when a dancer chooses to pause half a beat longer than they should. You've seen the mural, she says. Yes. You know what they left blank. You nod. She walks over and hands you a piece of charcoal and a strip of parchment. It's not about accuracy, she says. It's about leaving a map. You hesitate. I'm not a cartographer, you say. She tilts her head. No, you're a memory. So you draw. Not the spiral this time, not the movements they already know. You draw the moment just before the step. That split second where you almost don't move, where doubt or breath or wild courage holds you still. You draw hesitation and then release. When you finish, she nods, takes the parchment, and pins it beside the others. Now, she says, they'll know it's allowed. You glance around the room. The air here feels like a quiet rehearsal, like 1,000 ghosts twirling behind bookshelves, humming in corners. You thank her, not with words, with a nod, with a slight turn of the shoulder, a dancer's farewell. She bows. You slip back into the night. And the city waits, but it waits differently now. Not like it's asleep, like it's listening. The streets have thinned. Even the cats have retreated to their rooftop kingdoms, leaving the alleys to their own creaking, whispering selves. You walk slower now, not because you're tired, but because it feels wrong to rush through a place that has finally learned how to breathe again. Every wall you pass feels like it might lean in and whisper something if you just gave it time. You find yourself on a narrow bridge, crossing a shallow canal. Its water dark, but not unfriendly. It reflects moonlight in fractured ribbons, like the silver threads in the dancer's headdress. You stop at the center, resting your forearms on the stone railing. The breeze here carries less jasmine now and more salt. Somewhere downstream, someone is washing out a bowl, humming to themselves a tune you don't recognize, but might come to. You pull the ribbon from your belt. The one the girl gave you. You unwind it, slowly, fingers brushing its edges. Then gently, you tie it to the railing. A small flutter of color in the night. You don't tie it tightly, just enough, so that someday a breeze might carry it off. You continue across the bridge toward the oldest part of the city, where the walls lean in closer and the streets remember footsteps from centuries ago. There's a courtyard ahead, small, tucked between houses. You almost miss it. But the spiral on the gate catches your eye. It's crudely drawn, charcoal or ash, a child's hand likely. Inside the courtyard you see them, 4 children. 2 are spinning arms flung wide, laughing like they've been caught mid-mischief. 1 is watching intently, making notes with a stub of chalk on the flat stones, and one is sitting very still, eyes closed, hands placed palms up on their knees. You linger at the gate, invisible in the shadows. 1 child spins too quickly and topples into a heap of limbs and giggles. Another shushes them and points dramatically to the spiral, then places a hand over their own heart. They're remembering something they don't even know they learned. You smile, and you leave them to it. You turn down another alley and pass under a low arch covered in climbing vines. The arch is cracked, repaired multiple times with mismatched stone. You run your fingers along the join, admiring the resilience. It may not be elegant, but it held. A man steps out from the shadows up ahead, older, stooped, carrying a broom far too short for his height. He looks up as you approach, then does something strange. He bows. Not deeply, not formally, but like someone who knows what you've done. "I saw it," he says. You pause. "From the hill." "No," he replies, "in a dream."
Night before last. You wait. She danced under the stars, he says, spoke without words, stopped time. It wasn't you, not exactly, but it was someone like you. You feel a chill then, not fear, recognition. He grins, revealing teeth missing in places that make his face more honest. "She told me something," he says. You raise an eyebrow. He leans in. She said, "Tell them the gods never wanted silence. They just wanted to be asked to dance." You let out a quiet laugh. That sounds about right. He winks and sweeps away, humming a tune that might be centuries old or something he made up 5 minutes ago. Either way, it sounds like home. You walk again, and now the city is thinner, sleepier. Windows glow faintly behind curtains, and somewhere the low murmur of a story being told rocks a child towards sleep. You pause outside a house made of uneven stone. There's a ladder leaning against the side. At the top, a woman sits alone on the roof legs, crossed, braiding strands of her hair into loops. She's singing. You don't know the words, but the cadence is familiar, steady, graceful winding. You know that rhythm. She sees you, and without stopping her song, nods. And just like that, you know she's one of them. Not a dancer, not yet, but a keeper. One of the quiet ones who make sure things are remembered, even when the world is too loud to notice. You nod back and move on. By the time you reach the edge of the district, the moon is nearly overhead, full, pale, unapologetic. You glance up at it and whisper, "I hear you." And the moon, well, it doesn't answer with words. It glows harder, as if proud. You pass through the final gate of the city and into the scrub hills beyond, where old fig trees twist like sleepy elders and stones crunch gently beneath your steps. You stop once more and look back. The temple isn't visible from here, but you don't need to see it to know it's watching. Not looming, not judging, just waiting. Because somewhere out there, another dancer is waking up, and they'll need the silence you just broke. The hills greet you like an old song, the kind you don't remember learning, but somehow know by heart. Sparse trees stretch their branches toward the sky, as if they too are practicing movements in moonlight. The dirt path beneath your feet is loose with gravel and memory, winding toward nothing in particular. You're not walking to something anymore. You're walking with something. The rhythm, the spiral, the breath between steps. It hasn't left you.
And honestly, you're not sure it ever will. The night feels wider out here. The city behind you glows faintly, a basket of embers still buzzing with stories. In the distance, a low hill rises, a perfect place to rest. You make your way up, slowly brushing your fingers along tufts of wild thyme, releasing their scent like small spells. At the top you sit. No fanfare, just sky. You breathe deeply, letting the air settle into your bones. You're no longer trying to do anything, you're just being, which after all the forbidden dancing and scroll rescuing and ghost chasing is its own kind of miracle. You lean back and watch the stars, and then faintly at first you hear it again. A whisper, not spoken, not sung, offered. The same voice, the one that spoke inside the temple, the one that now lives in your ribs like a small, smug cat, only this time it doesn't ask anything. It says you've passed it on, and you feel the truth of it like warmth moving through your veins. You're not the keeper anymore. You're the messenger who made sure the flame reached the next torch. And now you rest. But rest is a strange thing when your body is still echoing with ritual. So instead you rise again, slowly. One more time. Just once more. Not for performance, not for memory, for the joy of motion. You press your foot into the earth, drag a small spiral in the dirt with your heel, then move. No choreography this time, no sequence, just instinct, a twist of the hip, a turn of the wrist, a sway that pulls your spine toward the stars and drops your arms like silk caught in wind. And when you stop, heart steady and not racing, just aware, you feel seen, even though no one's watching. Or maybe because someone always is. You sit again, tracing your finger through the spiral. You make it larger, wider, not perfect, but complete. And as you do, you think about the ones who came before you. The first dancer cloaked in myth, the one who moved without permission and was later painted into murals with no name. The teacher behind the veil who broke rules to pass on something too beautiful to lose. The musician in the stone room who played the forgotten song without ever needing an audience. The muralist who dared to paint your spin before history decided it was allowed.
Even the old woman with the chestnuts. They were all keepers of the dance in their own way. You were just one more, and someone else will be too. Historians still argue, you say? Allowed a sleepy grin tugging at your face, whether the spiral began with a god or a girl just bored enough to move. The moon says nothing, because the moon already knows. You take out the ribbon again, the one tied to memory, passed from hand to hand. You wrap it around a nearby branch. This time, you knot it tightly, let it stay. Let the wind carry the story from here. Let the next dancer find it by accident on a hill like this, under a sky like this, and wonder what it once meant. Maybe they'll tie a ribbon of their own. Maybe they'll dance. Or maybe they'll just sit here like you, watching the stars until the world feels soft again. The ground beneath you has warmed from your steps. You lie back and stare at the sky, blinking slowly. You remember one more thing.
A passage from one of the scrolls, the one with rose oil and the half-written melody. It said, "The sacred is not what we remember. It is what we are brave enough to repeat." You smile. Repeat it then, even if no one is watching, even if you forget the steps, because the spiral never ends. Dawn approaches gently without ceremony, no trumpets of light or dramatic shifts, just a slow thinning of night, as if someone is lifting a veil from the earth strand by strand. You lie there on the hill's spine, aligned with the earth's sleepy breath, watching as the stars fade like shy performers after the final bow. Your limbs are heavy, but it's the good kind of heavy earned, not burdensome. The ribbon tied to the branch beside you flutters in the gentlest of breezes. It doesn't tug, doesn't try to fly away. It simply exists, a quiet witness to everything that has happened and everything that will. You sit up, dust clinging to your elbows, hair slightly askew, in that way that always betrays a night full of motion. And then you hear it. A rustling from behind the next rise. Not threatening, just curious. You stand slowly and walk toward the sound. As you crest the hill, you see a group of 4 people, maybe 5, travelers, pilgrims perhaps. Each carries something, a bundle of fabric, a jug of water, a small drum. One of them stops and looks directly at you. Their eyes widen, not in fear but in recognition. You do not know them, but they know you. Or rather, they know what you've done. One steps forward, a tall woman with braids threaded in copper wire. She bows slightly, then lifts a hand to her chest. A spiral traced with one finger. You mirror the motion. She reaches into her satchel and pulls out a scroll. Not ancient. Fresh parchment sealed with a wax stamp shaped like an open hand. She extends it to you. You accept it silently. She speaks. Her voice is like riverbed gravel and warm wind. You made it safe again. You look down at the scroll. There's no title, but you can feel it humming through the seal. New dance. New memory. You meet her gaze. What will you do with it? She smiles. Write what we remember, and what if you don't? Then we dance anyway. She turns and the group begins moving again, heading toward the city. Not the temple, the city, because the dance doesn't belong to stone walls anymore. It belongs to the people again. You stay there a while holding the scroll. The wax is warm, or maybe your hands are. You sit once more, unseal it carefully, and unroll the parchment. Inside, not choreography. Not notes, just phrases, fragments, hands like questions. Knees before thunder, breath that waits. It's a map of feelings, not motions. A reminder that dance is not remembered, it's felt, lived, risked. You reread each line like a prayer. Then without thinking, you begin to move again. No one is watching. You don't care. The earth watches. The air, that's enough. Each gesture echoes not what you learned, but what you are. The arch of your foot sketches defiance. The tilt of your head offers devotion. Your hands cut the air softly, like you're brushing dust off forgotten books. And when you finish, you kneel, not in reverence, in gratitude. The sun peaks now over the hills, spilling gold across the world. The light catches your hair, your hands, your shadow, stretching long behind you like an echo with legs. You rise. Time to walk again. You return to the path, but you don't head toward the city. Not yet. Instead, you follow the lower trail that skirts the base of the hill, a shepherd's path barely used, weaving between fig trees and tall grass. Here you find another mark, scratched into a stone with a blade or a very determined spoon. Another spiral, crude, still wet with dew. Someone came this way recently. You crouch to study it, then spot something tucked in the grass. Nearby, a scrap of fabric dyed deep blue, embroidered with the glyph for listen. You laugh under your breath. The next dancer is already moving, and they've left you a sign. You tie the fabric beside the other ribbon on your belt. Your hips sway slightly as you walk, not from intention but from rhythm. Your body has changed. It knows now. Knows what to do, when to move, when to pause, and how to offer space for the next echo, because that's all you're doing now, offering space. And the spiral will fill it, as it always does. The sun climbs higher as you weave through the quiet hills, its light brushing everything with that sleepy, honey gold glow reserved for early mornings and half-remembered dreams. The path beneath your feet is soft with dust, warm where the sun has kissed it, and damp where the fig trees have cast their long, lazy shadows. Your footsteps make no sound, but the rhythm continues anyway. Somewhere inside you, the spiral still spins, not dizzying, not insistent, just steady, like a heartbeat that has learned to hum. Ahead, a small shrine comes into view, not part of the temple, and certainly not part of any official archive. It's the kind that exists without anyone admitting who built it, just a stack of stones arranged with far too much care to be an accident. Someone has painted one with a white spiral, its edges smudged by time and wind. You crouch beside it, run your fingers across the stone's face. There's a bundle of herbs tucked between the rocks, thyme and bay, maybe a few strands of wild lavender. You recognize the gesture, an offering for a memory or a blessing for a traveler. You leave one of the ribbons from your belt, tying it carefully to the base of the shrine near the herbs. Then you press your palm against the spiral-painted stone. It's cool, but it vibrates slightly, like it knows. You murmur a thank you, not to a god, not even to a ghost, just to the moment, and rise again. The path curls gently toward the east, where the hills begin to thin into terraced fields. You see olive trees dotting the horizon, their silver leaves shimmering under the sun's affection. And just beyond them, a small cluster of homes, more stone than wood roofs, sun-bleached and slanted from age. A village. You hesitate, then keep walking. You're not ready to return to the city yet. Not while the dance is still echoing in your limbs, still pressing against the backs of your knees, like the urge to leap. As you enter the village, a boy runs past you, barefoot, trailing a string of bells behind him. They jingle out of sync, a clumsy music that makes you smile. He doesn't even glance back, but a few older villagers do. One man leans against a low wall, eyes squinting in the sun. He studies you, then nods, not in greeting, but in agreement, as if he's seen something like you before, as if he remembers a dancer stepping through this village long ago. You make your way to the center square where a cracked well sits beneath a fig tree heavy with fruit. You draw water with the old pulley system, the rope creaking like an elder storyteller dragging up another tale. The water is cold and sweet. You cup your hands and drink slowly, letting it chase the dust from your throat and the silence from your bones. A woman nearby hums as she hangs wet linens across a line. The melody familiar again. You can't place it. You don't need to. It's the same hum you heard beneath the temple, the same rhythm played on that harp, the one passed from breath to breath, from one barely whispered generation to the next. You sit beneath the fig tree, back pressed to its ancient bark. The shade is soft, the kind that invites confession. You watch as villagers come and go, nobody in a rush, nobody pretending to be more than they are. And you think this is where the dance lives now. Not just in temples or scrolls or etched stones, but here, in the woman's hum, in the boy's bells, in your fingers which still twitch slightly in rhythm when you're not paying attention. You lean your head back and close your eyes just for a moment. The spiral moves inside your chest, not spinning, now just resting, curled, content, like a cat in a warm window. You dream briefly, not of dances, but of pauses, of moments where nothing happens but everything shifts. A candle flickering before it steadies, a child inhaling before they speak, a silence so deep it becomes music. You wake with a start, not because of noise, because of knowing. The time to return has come. You rise slowly, bones clicking like wind chimes. You've left enough behind here, and the city is waiting. Not for another performance, for a presence, for someone who's not a dancer, or a rebel, or a memory, but a mirror. Someone who lets others see their own rhythm reflected back. You walk, and this time your steps are not hesitant, not holy, just true. You descend from the village in the soft, slow way that only comes after transformation, the kind of descent that doesn't feel like going down but more like settling into. The hills give way to stone steps and the olive trees thin until the horizon opens again to that familiar sprawl, the city. But you don't enter it like before, you don't creep around side gates or shadows. You walk through the main arch as if you've never known shame or secrecy or the sensation of dancing where you weren't supposed to, because now you were supposed to. The streets are stirring, bakers sweeping flour from their stoops, porters loading carts with fresh dates and olives, children carrying baskets almost as big as they are. The scent of sesame and citrus clings to the breeze. You pass it all without hurry, letting your feet choose the path, your body humming softly with memory. And then you notice it, a small gathering in the square near the fountain. Not a crowd, just a handful of people standing in a loose circle watching something. You approach slowly, and you see her. The girl from the dock. The one who hummed the moon's song like she'd swallowed a scroll whole in her sleep. She's dancing. It's unpolished. Her elbows stick out, her turns wobble, and she trips once over her own foot, but none of it matters, because she's feeling it. Really feeling it. The ribbon you gave her is tied to her wrist, fluttering like it's doing its own dance. Her eyes are closed, but not in fear, in focus, in joy. Around her, the watchers aren't judging, they're remembering. You feel it like heat against your skin. The baker sways slightly, as if the dough still in his hands is shaping a rhythm. A boy mimics a turn when he thinks no one's looking. An older woman whispers a tune that hasn't been sung aloud since she was the girl's age. And just like that, the spiral spreads. No platform, no veil, no temple guards wringing their hands over heresy. Just a girl and the courage to move. You lean against the edge of a stall and watch until she finishes. There's no applause, only breath, the sacred pause after something true has happened. The girl opens her eyes and sees you. Her face blooms into a grin. You nod, just once. She walks over, still catching her breath. "Did I do it wrong?" she asks, half laughing. You tilt your head. There's no wrong anymore. She nods like she knew that, like she just needed you to say it out loud. Then she reaches into the pouch at her hip and presses something into your hand. It's a charm, small, copper, spiral-shaped. "I made it yesterday," she says. "Didn't know why." You turn it over in your palm. The edges are uneven, a little sharp, clearly made by hand, but its center perfectly balanced. You loop it onto your corded belt. A new token, a new beat in the rhythm. You part with her gently and keep moving deeper into the city. Past the market, past the scribes' quarter, where papyrus curls in the sun like sleepy tongues. You turn into a narrow street you haven't walked in years, and there it is, the House of Whispers. A former dancer's refuge, once a school, then a sanctuary now, something in between. You knock. Not because the door is closed, because it's tradition. The man who opens it has the creased eyes of someone who laughs often and the careful hands of someone who writes everything down, even if he's not supposed to. He squints at you, then laughs. "You're late." You grin. "You're still here?" "I never left," he says, stepping aside. "I just waited better." The interior is dim and cool. Smells like ink and old sandalwood and unexpectedly lemons. Scrolls line the walls, not arranged by topic, arranged by tone, joy, grief, wonder, resistance. He leads you to a low table near the back where a pot of tea waits like it had already decided you were coming. You sit. No small talk, you slide the copper charm across the table. He raises an eyebrow. "Ah," he says. "So they've started again." You nod. He lifts the charm to the light, studies its imperfect spiral, then pulls a scroll from a nearby shelf and begins to write. "What are you calling this era?" he asks. You blink. You get to name it, he says, not looking up. "That's the deal. Whoever reawakens the pattern writes its next title. You consider, sip the tea, and say the age of remembering out loud." He chuckles, then writes it down, ink drying fast in the heat. You sit together in silence, the way dancers do after rehearsal, not to rest, but to absorb, because history has shifted, quietly, again. The scent of lemons still clings to your robe, long after you've left the house of whispers. It mixes with the dust and sweat and that ever-persistent trace of temple incense, creating a perfume that doesn't exist in any apothecary but somehow feels like home. You walk without destination. The city pulses around you, not louder, just awake. There's something different in the way people walk now, in the way they speak. A subtle rhythm under everything, like the heartbeat of something ancient waking up in the belly of the streets. You pass a baker's stall. The dough has been scored in spiral patterns. A child in the alley draws dance steps in the dirt with a stick. A group of apprentices practice drum rhythms on overturned pots, laughing when their timing falters, but trying again anyway. You keep walking. And then you see it. A new mural. Fresh pigment. Still wet in places. On the outer wall of the public baths, the last place you'd expect holy rebellion to show up, which somehow makes it perfect. The image a dancer, not you, not exactly. The pose is familiar, but the body is fluid, neither masculine nor feminine, neither young nor old. The hands hold a ribbon. The spiral is carved into the soles of bare feet. But what catches your breath is the background. It's the temple, but not as it is, as it was, filled with light, open doors, people watching from every arch. Some weeping, some smiling, all feeling. You step closer, and that's when you notice the script etched beneath. "We move, therefore we remember." There's no signature. Of course not. That's the thing about the dance. It never belongs to just one person. You press your palm to the wall just lightly. The pigment is still tacky. You pull back before your fingers leave a mark. And then, almost as if by instinct, you look to your left across the street where an older man stands beside a cart of clay pots. He's watching you, not in judgment, not in surprise, in confirmation. He nods once and continues stacking his pots. You turn and make your way back toward the temple. You haven't been back since that night, and every stone along the path seems to hum with quiet expectation. As you approach the great gates, you see a figure seated by the entrance, a scribe. Ink-stained fingers' robes rumpled from sleep scrolls spread in a chaotic halo. She looks up as you arrive. "You're late," she says. You smirk. Popular phrase today. She gestures to the scrolls beside her. We're updating the records, new annotations, new footnotes. Apparently some dances are no longer theoretical. You crouch beside her. She hands you a scroll. We don't know the name of the final step you took. You unroll it. The final movement is marked with a placeholder gesture, undefined. You raise an eyebrow. You want me to name it? She shrugs, or describe it, or dance it again. You consider that. Then slowly you rise to your feet. In the shade of the temple gates on warm stone you move. Not the whole dance, just the ending, the breath, the offering. The half step forward that shouldn't feel like enough, but somehow is. When you finish, the scribe's eyes are wet. She nods. We'll call it the door opens. You sit beside her again, both of you looking out toward the city. She begins scribbling furiously, trying to catch every angle of the movement you just gave her. You lean back against the stone. The temple behind you doesn't loom now, it rests. The city ahead is no longer a maze, it's a stage. And you're not the performer anymore. You're the pause before the next music starts, the whisper before someone dares to raise their arms. You reach into your pouch and pull out the copper charm the girl gave you, the ribbon from the child on the hill, the scrap of fabric with "listen" embroidered in crooked thread. You lay them beside the scribe. Archive these. She nods solemnly. They'll be remembered. You rise, not in haste, not in farewell, but in rhythm, because the dance never ends, and neither do you. You step away from the temple and into the heartbeat of the city, no longer a question mark, no longer a secret. Your presence no longer curls around corners like a whisper. It's a rhythm now felt in bread lines, in broom strokes, in the soft murmur of market haggling. Your robe catches the breeze. The copper charm on your belt taps your hip in a steady beat as you walk. Tap, 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 like the beginning of a phrase, or the call before a drum responds. You turn into a familiar alley, narrow, sun-striped, wedged between two buildings, so close they look like they're whispering gossip. At the far end is a door you remember from childhood. Faded blue paint cracked along the grain. A hook once held flowers. Now it holds memory. You knock once, twice. No answer. But the door creaks open anyway. Inside, cool stone floors, stacks of baskets, a shrine with half-melted candles. And there, on the altar, lies a mask.
Gold leaf flaked in places. Eye slits narrowed into permanent concentration. A dancer's mask, old as myth, yet not a day over divine. You remember it from the stories, the high priest's mask, the last one worn before the temple forbade movement. Said to be heavy with purpose, lined with prayers, too dangerous to speak aloud. You step closer, you don't touch it, not yet. The mask rests on a folded cloth crimson with age. Beneath it, a single line carved into wood. Only when the face forgets itself can the body remember. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. The air here tastes like dust and intention. You sit cross-legged on the floor and stare at the mask. What would happen if you wore it not for a performance, not for display, but as an act of surrender, of remembrance? You close your eyes and listen. The room is silent. Then not sound exactly, but presence. You feel it. The same presence from the spiral, from the scroll room, from the mural that changed as you danced. It's not watching you, it's mirroring you. You open your eyes and reach forward, fingers brushing the edge of the mask. It's warm. You lift it. It's heavier than it looks.
The kind of weight that's not just metal, it's stories, reputations, silences passed down like heirlooms. You lower the mask toward your face slowly, then pause, heart pounding, and then you smile. Because you know now you don't need to wear it. Not anymore. You've already moved through everything the mask was meant to protect. You place it back on the cloth, this time with reverence, not curiosity. You rise, the stone cool beneath your bare feet. As you turn to leave, you glance once more at the inscription. It doesn't ask anything of you. It simply affirms what you already chose. Outside, the sun has climbed to midday. The city is humming louder now. A group of children chase each other with fabric strips trailing from their wrists. One shouts, "Do the temple twirl," and promptly spins so fast he falls over in a heap, laughing. No one stops them. No one warns them. The taboo has dissolved, not erased, transformed. The spiral has moved into the streets. You make your way toward the outer market where incense stalls bloom beside clay pots and glinting bronze mirrors. A merchant recognizes you. He doesn't say your name, doesn't offer a discount. He just nods toward a rack of pendants, each one etched with the familiar spiral. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. People want to feel it. Even if they don't dance, you finger one of the pendants. It's rough, unpolished. The kind of thing someone wears not to be beautiful, but to belong. You leave a few coins and take one. As you walk away, the wind picks up again, tugging at your sleeve. And this time, the wind sings. It's faint, but clear. A song with no words. A melody older than temples. You pause, tilt your head. The notes wrap around you, beckoning, not pushing. The spiral still speaking. You whisper, "I'm listening." And the wind continues, because the dance has always been a conversation. Between body and air, between earth and foot, between memory and motion. And now finally the city is answering back. The pendant warms slightly against your chest. As you move through the marketplace, the spiral etched into it, catching flecks of sunlight. It's not magical, not in the storybook sense, but it carries weight. The kind of weight that comes from being chosen, or choosing. You pass a pottery stall where a man is etching small spirals into the base of bowls. He's not trying to hide it, nor drawing attention to it either. It's casual, almost playful, but each motion is deliberate, like a signature or a spell. Across from him, a woman sells ribbons dyed in stormy shades, blue, violet, charcoal, each one with a phrase stitched in silver thread. You read them as you pass, move like no one remembers. Sacred is the silence between steps. Even the wind has a rhythm. You want all of them. You settle for one, a deep indigo ribbon that reads, "Let the ground answer you." You tie it to your wrist. It flutters, immediately joining the conversation in the air. The city has changed, not dramatically, but undeniably. There's movement in places where there used to be stillness. People touch their hearts before speaking. Fingers trace spirals into condensation on water jars, and more than once you pass doorways where music wafts out into the street, unguarded, unasked for, offered. You come to a staircase leading down a familiar place. The archive. The one beneath the bakery that was never just about flour and fire. You descend the air, cooling as you go. Inside, the scribes have been busy. Scrolls litter the room like petals after a storm. New ones, old ones, some partially burned, rescued just in time. And amidst them all, a chalkboard leans against the back wall. Written on it in looping script, We have stopped asking if the stories are true. Now we ask, only do they help us move? You chuckle. You walk past a row of benches and stop at a long, low table where a group of apprentices are arguing softly, respectfully over a particular sequence in one of the old dances. One says it ends in a bow, another swears it ends with the dancer facing away from the audience. A third suggests it never ends at all, that the final step is still happening. You don't interrupt. You just walk to the end of the table, pick up a stick of charcoal, and on the blank slate beside them, draw a spiral. Then, under it, you write. The final step is the first one offered again. They stare. One smiles, another nods. The third raises their hand and says, "So." Basically, it loops. You wink and walk on. You climb the spiral staircase that leads to the rooftop, one you've never taken before. The upper levels were once off-limits, reserved for the guardians of the archive, those who held knowledge too delicate for everyday minds. Well, that ship danced off the dock a while ago. You emerge into sunlight and find yourself in a rooftop garden, a hidden space. Green vines creep along clay walls and a small stone fountain murmurs to itself in the corner. In the center, a circle of flat stones has been carefully laid wide enough for one dancer, maybe two. You step into it without thinking and move. This time it's not about secrecy or courage or defiance. It's about invitation. You let your arms open like shutters in spring. Your feet make soft sounds on the stone. Your breath leads every motion like a musician marking the tempo. And you realize this is the most sacred dance of all. Not the first, not the forbidden, not the performance, the welcome. You finish with your palms open facing the sun. And when you open your eyes, you see that you are no longer alone. 3 figures stand at the rooftop's edge, watching. Not silently, not fearfully, just witnessing. One steps forward. A young man, he doesn't speak, he simply mirrors your stance, hands open, feet steady. The other 2 follow, and for a brief, perfect moment, you are not a dancer alone. You are a movement. You smile and step back. Let them begin. You descend the rooftop steps with lighter feet than before, not because your body aches any less, but because it no longer carries the weight of being the only one. The dance is no longer yours. It lives now in the rooftop garden, in the alleyway mural, in the sway of the children spinning barefoot in temple shadows. It lives in the bracelets braided with spirals in the copper pendants, clinking on market carts, in the movement stitched quietly into linen hems. You are no longer the keeper. You're the echo that helped it return. The streets carry a low hum as evening approaches. Lanterns swing gently from awnings, and somewhere a reed flute offers its tender, reedy voice to the golden dusk. The city, having remembered itself, now moves with new grace, like it has finally forgiven its own forgetting. You find yourself walking toward the outer wall where the wind always dances first, unbothered by rooftops and rituals. A boy waves at you as he passes. He's got spirals painted on his cheeks and carries a rolled-up mat under one arm. There's a new practice hall by the grain courtyard, he calls over his shoulder. They're teaching the sequence from the scroll you saved. You grin. Which one? He shrugs. Does it matter? And off he goes. You continue on past the old fig tree where once you'd knelt to drink. There's a ribbon tied to it now. Indigo. It flutters gently in the breeze, and beside it, tucked into the bark, is a copper charm, just like the one on your belt. This one has a word, etched in it, soon. You walk beyond the tree toward the narrow footpath that leads down to the river. The water's voice grows louder with every step, a soothing murmur of cool stone and glimmering currents. Near the riverbank, you see them. Not dancers, writers, scribes and storytellers, their scrolls unrolled across low tables, ink pots perched beside them like silent sentinels. They are not chronicling performances. They are collecting phrases, memories, gestures, testimonies. You pass a woman muttering as she writes, hands lifted before the step, always trembling. Why does that matter? Her neighbor answers without looking up, because that's the moment they choose. And there it is again, the spiral, not emotion now, but in thought, in intention. You stop beside a younger scribe who has paused mid-sentence, biting their thumb. You peer at the scroll. The forbidden dances were not about rebellion. They were about... They sigh. I don't know how to finish it. You smile, then don't. They blink. Let the next person write the ending, you say, or better, dance it. They beam, and you walk on. As you reach the river's edge, the sun rests low on the horizon. The water sparkles in ripples of bronze and gold like it's dressing up for twilight. You sit on a worn stone feet, barely brushing the water's edge, the familiar rhythm of the current lapping against your ankles. You take off your pendant. Hold it in your palm. Then, without ceremony, you toss it into the water. It skips, once, then sinks. Not lost, returned. You pull your knees to your chest and rest your head on them, letting the river speak. It talks about time, about secrets, about how every ripple is just a wave remembering a stone it once kissed. The wind lifts around you, playful again. It tugs at your robe, wraps around your fingers, lifts a few strands of hair. And then, soft as breath, you hear a footstep, not yours. Behind you, you turn. A woman stands at the edge of the path. Her expression is unreadable, calm, curious, reverent. She says only, "Are you the one who danced?" You tilt your head. "That depends," you answer. "Which dance are you asking about?" She smiles. "The one that reminded us we could." You meet her eyes, then rise slowly, and without words offer your hand. She takes it, not to be led, but to join. Two figures now, standing on the river's edge, facing the sunset, holding a silence that speaks more than any chant ever could. No music, just heartbeat, just memory, just presence. You bow slightly. She mirrors it, and together, without stepping forward yet, you feel the world lean in, waiting. You begin again, not with a leap, not with some grand ceremonial flourish, but with a breath. One slow inhale, one grounding exhale. Your body already knows. You step forward just 1 foot, and the woman mirrors you. No one is watching, or rather, no one needs to, because this is not for an audience. This is not about reclaiming the forbidden. It's about moving now, because nothing is forbidden anymore. Your shoulders roll back, your palms open, your ribs lift, like they remember what it feels like to be a doorway instead of a cage. And then the rhythm returns, not imposed, not inherited, invited. The two of you move together by the riverside as the light fades into that liminal shade of dusk, when gold touches blue and the world forgets which color it meant to be. You step around one another like planets circling a shared sun. The river claps softly at the shore. A bird calls once from a fig tree, and somewhere behind you, someone hums a single, sustained note. The woman across from you smiles, not because the movement is perfect, because it isn't. It wobbles, it breathes, it lives. She finishes her last turn and bows, not deeply, not ceremonially, just enough to honor the moment. You bow back. Then you both sit, legs crossed, hands resting on your knees, facing the darkening water. You feel a peace you didn't know you'd been chasing, because there's nothing left to teach and nothing left to hide. The city behind you is alive with quiet music. The temple sleeps with its doors open. The murals no longer need to change. They simply are. You close your eyes. Let the wind comb through your hair. Let the water sing its small, endless song. You've brought the dance full circle, and the circle is still widening, because now across rooftops and fields, across scrolls and ribbons, across generations and gaps in memory, people are moving. Some with grace, some with joy, some with the awkward bravery of beginners. But all of them are answering the same question with the same response. Yes, yes, I remember. Yes, I'm listening. Yes, I'm ready to move again. And somewhere far away, perhaps on a hill or in a mirror or in a room with too much dust and just enough light, another foot will press into the ground. A new spiral will begin. Because the forbidden dance was never about defying the gods. It was about reminding the world that holiness lives in motion, that sacredness pulses in hips and shoulders and knees and breath, that we are not meant to stand still. We are meant to feel, to offer, to remember. You lie back on the cool grass beside the river and look up. The first stars are out like small notes on a vast sheet of sky. You let the spiral rest, now not gone, just sleeping inside your bones. And with your final breath before sleep, you think, let them dance without fear now. And the wind answers, they already are. The night deepens around you now, thick with calm and folded silence. Your body is heavy in the sweetest way, limbs sinking deeper into softness, into stillness. That gentle rhythm, the one you've carried across temples and scrolls and rooftops, fades now into something even quieter. A breath, a sigh, the feeling of being exactly where you're meant to be. The stars above hold steady, no longer watching but simply being. Like you, the spiral has done its work. You've moved, you've remembered, and now you rest. Let the images blur the flickering torchlight on stone, the cool press of river water on your skin, the rustle of ribbons in the wind. Let them melt together into warmth, into weightlessness, into dreams that spin like dancers, too soft for waking. You are not alone in this silence. All around you, others lie in their own quiet spirals, hands, open hearts, steady breathing, with the rhythm of a world learning to move again. The forbidden is no longer forbidden. The sacred is no longer hidden. And you are safe now to sleep. No temple guards, no veils, no steps left unlearned. Just breath and stillness and sleep. So close your eyes and let the earth hold you. Let the wind sing one last lullaby through the trees. And let the spiral carry you gently down, down, down. End of script. Sweet dreams.